Good evening. This is, Owen, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thanks. All right, so we have just returned from executive session in which we discussed matters covered under Exception 3 of the Massachusetts Open Meeting Law, which is to discuss issues related to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. And these discussions pertained to the Medfield Teachers Association, units A and B. And now we are going to call to order this February 11th regular session of the Medfield School Committee, beginning with a roll call. This meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted as well on the Medfield TV YouTube channel after the meeting, usually within a day or so. So I think I need to, I'm sorry, I just had a moment. I need to, all right. At this point, I'm sorry, I'm completely blanking. Do I need to do a roll call vote to open the meeting? No, it's already open. Okay, sorry. At this point, I'll call for public input. Citizens at this time may address the committee on items of school business that are not on the agenda. And the committee will take such items under advisement without action or discussion at this time at the meeting at which the item is then presented. And to indicate that you would like to offer a comment on an item that is not on the evening's agenda, please use the raise your hand icon on the screen. And when you're brought over, please tell us your name, and then you'll have 3 minutes to make your statement. And we'll hear public comments under this agenda item for up to 15 minutes. Okay, so, and if the rest of you could kind of watch out for raised hands. We'll give it a minute or so. Okay, does anybody else see a raised hand? No? Okay. All right, then we are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of minutes for the regular session meeting of the October 22nd, 2020 minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay. I hear, and then do I hear a second, please?
Second.
Second for, we'll let you have one, Tim, on the next one.
Slow.
And so roll call vote, Leo Brem.
Aye.
And Tim Knight.
Aye.
And Megan Glenn.
Aye.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke.
Aye.
And Jessica Riley, aye. The motion passes. The next item is the approval and retention of minutes for the executive sessions on November 12th, 2020, December 3rd, 14th, and 17th, 2020, January 7th, 12th, and 15th, 2021. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved. Anna
Okay,
Mae.
Anna Mae, so moved.
Second, Megan.
Megan, second. Then I will do a roll call. Leo Brem.
Abstain.
Leo Brem's going to abstain. And Tim Knight.
Aye.
And Megan Glenn.
Aye.
And Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke.
Aye.
And Jessica Riley, aye. So the motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay. The fiscal year 21 budget update, Dr. Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just in your materials, you had the operating budget summary page, which looks at our actual typically expended at this point of the year, and then our actuals to this year. you'll see that overall, typically we've expended 54% of our budget. Right now it's at 47%. One of the things that I'll just highlight a couple of areas. In terms of personnel, instructional services, you'll see that typically we've expended 42% at this time of year. But right now we're at 48%, and that will just keep going up because those are the additional staff members that we've hired to get the school open with COVID, whether that be aides or additional teachers, et cetera. So that number will keep going up. But right now with overall personnel, we typically expended at 50% and we're only at 48%. So again, we're on target for that particular piece. But as we get further into the year, certainly we'll be overspending in that general area. Non-personnel, just a couple to look at. Student support services, typically we're at 58%. Right now we're at 27%. If you remember, we prepaid the special education transportation, which is really the reason why we've only expended the 27%. In operations, you'll see that we're typically at 58% and we're only at 44% right now. And that's the January bills haven't gone in to be paid yet. So that's once those January bills are paid, we're always a month, after, then that will get up to, and when I say the bills, I mean electric, gas, et cetera. Those bills need to be paid. So once those are done, we'll be much closer to the 58%, which we typically are at this time of year. So overall, we're only at the 47% and usually at 54%, which is good. We just know that number is going to grow as the year goes on because of the personnel costs and the increase of personnel. So we are going to freeze our budget as we've done in years past after February vacation. So that would mean that the only spending that happens in district is for things like payroll and our bills related to electricity and gas and all our utilities. So we're going to really try to shut that down because, as you remember, we had those meetings in the past with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Warrant Committee regarding the COVID expenses that were incrementally going up, and obviously the issue around the Chapter 70, in which we did our budget at town meeting with a 10% reduction in Chapter 70. After the budget was set at town meeting, the governor released the budget for FY21 and included a level funding of the Chapter 70. So there's 10% or 600,000 of funds that the town has now that did not go to the schools, that was earmarked for the schools. So we're hoping that we land right around that 600,000 mark so that when we go to town meeting in May, it's just really a transfer of funds that were ours to begin with. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. That's our goal, is to get that down. Remember, we were way up before. We were over 1 million, 1.1, 1.2. So we've really brought that down on our projections and our spending. So, I know Michael has he's not with us tonight and has a lot of the other details, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have that I might be able to answer.
Megan?
Yeah, I'm wondering the equipment category, that's way down. What encompasses equipment?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's typically, we usually pay for that near the end of the year. So if that's any replacement of equipment like lawn equipment for our or new tractor or something like that, those kinds of things that we have in district, or it's a new floor scrubber, all those kinds of things. So you notice that it's only a 60,000 number anyway to begin with, so it's not a huge part of our budget, but it's just trying to any replacement of any of those kinds of things that we have in district. But what we typically do is wait until the end, and if we have additional funds at the end and we need to replace floor scrubber or lawnmower or something like that isn't in capital, we would do it through that.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Marston, I have a question specifically about our food service and how those expenses fit into a freeze in a year in which we are not earning any revenue within that category. So
so the freeze is just for the operating budget. That's
right, just for the operating. And so it has nothing to do with any of the revolving funds that are currently not revolving, but will need to be made up.
Right. So it's only for the operating budget.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Do I have any other committee members who have questions or thoughts about the fiscal year 21 budget and where we are right now? No? Okay, then what I'm going to do is open that up to public comment. around the fiscal year 21 budget. All right, looks like I have Christine McHugh-Potts. Owen, if you would like to bring her over.
Hi, good evening. Whoop, in the dark here, but that's okay. I just have a really very quick question with regard to the budget freeze. Because school committee responsibility has to do with the budget, isn't that a school committee decision to freeze the budget? And should that be a vote? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Chris is done. Right, okay.
I'm sure I'll just add that it has never been that way in the past. We've always done budget freezes when we've needed to do them. And in my prior superintendency and this one as well, it's always been a communication that we've had with the school committee, but it's never been a vote. So.
And essentially our duty is within the larger line in budget items. So we are not changing any of those things. We're simply not spending any money.
Correct.
Right now.
Also,
That's
it's also
administrative.
advisable. It's also advisable to the committee that since we hired Dr. Marsden as the CEO, and it is fiscally responsible to freeze the budget, then we believe that it's probably a good idea to freeze the budget. Otherwise, we'll run out of money.
Right. So, yeah. So actually, I think that we'll get to the, and so I want to make sure that I don't have any additional, nope, okay.
Just one minor follow-up, and I think this goes without saying, if there's a freeze, but safety, COVID-oriented expenses would be an exception. Sanitizer, things like that, or how would that be managed?
Yeah, those are mandatory expenses. So we would absolutely do that.
Okay, so I would like to move on to the school learning model progress at this point, which I think most people are here for. And Dr. Marsden, why don't you take it away?
Sure. So I have a lot to report today and a lot of good news to report today. So one of the best emails I've gotten in a long time, and we had a meeting with the commissioner this afternoon, the transportation regulations have been lifted for us. And that is just a huge thing for us to have. So essentially we've been talking about now for months about the 24 student capacity we have on our buses. And as of today, those have all been this afternoon, those have been lifted. So we are able to put additional students on the bus. We are able to put 2 students in a seat. And we no longer have to have the zigzag every other student, every other row zigzag that we have on our buses right now, which is really incredibly inefficient. And it really prevents us from bringing more kids back to school. So that's just great news. We were very excited to hear that. We still have to have all the mitigation factors that go along with that. So the windows still have to be open 2 inches. And I know that some folks have a problem with that in the winter time, but the key piece to all this is ventilation in the buses, and we need to have that ventilation going. So we need to, we can be creative around that and do every other window. We can do those kinds of things, but we need to have the cross ventilation, whether it's 3 degrees out, 16 degrees out, or 80 degrees out. We need to have that cross ventilation for safety. The kids have to have masks on as a part of it, so that stays the same. Kids need to have masks on at the bus stop still. All of that remains the same, but we just have an increased capacity, which is just really, really great news for us, and continue us to no longer a barrier for us to move forward in terms of getting more kids into school. So other items on there, parents.
Dr. Marks, just one follow-up. So that without the zigzag and whatnot, what is the capacity move to? I mean, normally it's 72.
Yeah, so we're looking at, because of what, again, trying to be realistic about the number of kids on there. We're looking at a capacity of 47 right now, which again, doubles our capacity essentially. We can put more on if we need to, but we think 47. I mean, we just got it at 2:30 this afternoon. So our preliminary discussions, we're putting 47 on. We haven't even met with the bus company about it yet. Wouldn't take effect until Monday after vacation anyway. So we're going to take some time tomorrow to have those meetings and discuss what that might look like. But we're no longer restricted by that 24, which has really been a killer for us. Essentially, we've talked about, again, we need to look at it more in depth, but one of the things that we talked about today was eventually going back to the bus transportation model that we've always done, as opposed to doing it by school. So that might be something we need to do if we progress to more in person, going back to that original model we've always had. So those are all things that we're looking at and talking about. The big thing is, and I think I told you, I told the committee last week that I had reached out to the commissioner and asked when we were going to get some more guidance, because it's really holding us back and other districts back as well. He mentioned to me last week that it would be the end of this week. I never expected we'd actually get it today. So that was really good news, because we were really rolling the dice with first grade starting after February vacation. We'd have to get an additional bus from the bus company in order to make that work, and now we don't. So it's really good news. Really good news.
Dr. Marston, would that mean, so that 47 essentially is one child per seat, essentially?
You could do it that way. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could do it. It's actually, it's a little more than that, but we could do more than that if we need to. You know, but that's what we need to do next week on break, is to kind of figure out, lay it all out and see what it looks like in terms of, you know, what we can, how many kids we can bring back in reduced buses. Like we have 7 buses at Memorial. We're not going to need that now. And just kind of move all that around and make sure that we're at a more efficient capacity and it's safe for kids as well. So anyway, good news around that. That's an important step in the right direction for everyone in the Commonwealth, and especially for us in Medfield. So that's a good piece. I do want to talk a little bit about the other health and safety guidance and changes. And I know that Kathy Thompson, who is our lead nurse and also on the Medfield Board of Health, we'll be talking about a little later, but you know, we're going to be entering into the COVID-19 pool testing program that DESE has provided. We're going to be looking at pool testing all of our staff, pre-K to 12, and then focusing on students 6 through 12. And Kathy can talk about that in a little bit when we get down to that line item. But that's an important piece too, as we move towards another data point for more in person. I gave you a potential timeline for full in person, and I want to just go over that, the high points with you, if I may. As we discussed at our last meeting, we continue to plan and prepare for a full in-person model as described in our district reopening plan that was submitted and approved by DESE in August of 2020. You remember our plan, we had to have in-person, remote, and hybrid. That was our plan that was approved by DESE. This memo will provide 2 different scenarios of a full in-person return. And these are just 2 that we've worked on in the last couple of weeks at central office. And it could be a combination of this. It could be neither of these, but just trying to, again, we talked about at the last meeting that April 5th was our target for all kids in, and we felt like that was important for us to state that a couple of weeks ago. And now as we continue to work on this, so just some of the key points. We will continue to monitor both state and local health metrics. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer, but it's really important for the safety of our students and our staff that we continue to do that. Here's a key point, that student distancing would utilize the DESE recommended range of 3 to 6 feet. So we've said all along, we cannot get everybody in at 6 feet. There's no way we can do it. So if we have that range that DESE has provided us and we work with that, I mean, let's just think about what we just talked about a minute ago. We're allowing 2 kids to sit on a bus next to each other. We're not saying they have to be 3 feet away, 6 feet away, 10 feet away, 12 feet away. They're sitting next to each other. So if they can do that, I think we really need to have that conversation about what the classroom environment looks like. And Cohort D will remain as an option for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year. I think that families have really appreciated the Cohort D. It's gone very, very well for them. Our staff has done an incredible job with the Cohort D students. And my sense is that families would want to stay there for the rest of the year. One of the points that we talked about today with the commissioner is that asked if DESE was going to mandate us to have a cohort D next school year. And the feeling from the state is that that's going to be very limited to medically fragile students, and that we're really going to push forward to full in-person and not really have a need for cohort D at that point. So that's, again, this is February. That's the thinking right now, that we're not going to have a cohort D going forward, but we will have it for the rest of this school year for those families that chose that. So looking at one scenario is a lot like the one we talked about at the April 5th. Again, the assumption is now Memorial will be full in. So after February vacation, Memorial pre-K, K, and 1 will be full in person at that school. So looking at scenario 1, Wheelock and Dale will return the week of April 5th, 2021. And as I get down in the memo, you see there's some challenges with Dale Street because of the classes, the class size, and the actual square footage in the classes. There's definitely some issues that we got to work out there. And then Blake and the high school return the week of April 12th. So part of the reason why we looked at that, and again, this is a less aggressive one than scenario 2, but we would have many, many weeks of data for pool testing at that point. So that would give us a really good sense of what the prevalence of the virus is, if any, in our schools. And I know that my colleagues that started a week early on the testing have found really positive results in that. So I think if we can start to get those positive results, that will give a lot of confidence to families, a lot of confidence to staff members that we're doing this surveillance testing and we're getting a sense of whether or not there's virus in our schools. I just want to reiterate again, we have zero evidence of in-school transmission. We've had almost 100 cases, zero evidence of in-school transmission. I believe, and Kathy can correct me when she comes on, I don't think we've had a close contact, an in-school close contact test positive, but she can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we have. The positive cases that we've seen at the upper levels have been related to out-of-school behavior, not in-school behavior. It's been related to decisions that have been made on weekends, at night, those kinds of decisions where there weren't mitigating factors. Inside, without ventilation, no mask on. That's what we have seen. At the younger levels, we haven't had a lot there, but at the younger levels, we've seen students whose parents are positive and the student become positive because they live in the same home. That's what we've seen at the lower level. We've seen zero evidence of in-school spread and transmission. So I don't think I'd be having this conversation with you if we were in a situation we've had multiple clusters and the state mobile unit has come out and there's been tons of testing and all of that fanfare. I would not be having this conversation with you. But the fact that we still have not seen it, and we've had only one case this week, I think we're really trending in the right direction for more in person. Scenario number 2, Wheelock and Dale return the week of March 15th, 2021. Blake Middle and Medfield High School return the week of March 22nd. So a little more aggressive than scenario 1, but again, we'll have some data around pool testing on that will help us guide what we're looking at. So I think we need to use the state and local metrics, the pool testing data, and see where we are during those points. But I think those are reachable. In both of these scenarios, we'll utilize the pool testing data, and this data, along with the COVID-19 numbers, will assist us in our decision making. But there's other important factors for us to consider as a school district. First one is looking at furniture, desks, tables, shields, etc. So the way we have our schools outfitted right now, we have a lot of furniture in storage, and we've moved a lot of furniture around. For instance, we've taken furniture that was at Blake Middle School, and it's adjustable, and brought it down over to Memorial so that we could use it over there so it fits those kids instead of being a middle school size desk. We have some of that flexibility with the furniture, but we need to kind of corral all that and put that back into the classrooms. And it's almost like what we do in the summer when we clean all the schools and then put it all back together. It's almost doing that all over again. So if and when we go back full in person, we're probably going to have to go to an asynchronous remote day before we do it, which is what we're doing with first grade. When we come back from vacation, they're going to have an asynchronous remote day on that Monday, and then the kids will come back on that Tuesday because our teachers need to work into that classroom and get that all ready for our kids. So we have to be flexible around that. And I think we know that if people are coming back, if kids are coming back in person, then that one more asynchronous day, it's worth it because we're going to get everyone back into the schools. So lunch is something that we have to talk about and really plan for, because the students do need to remain 6 feet apart at lunchtime. So that's something that we have to look at and plan for. It works really well at the elementaries right now because of the shields we have on the classrooms. That works really well. Every desk has a shield. But we'll have to look at different spaces and different opportunities. Obviously, the high school isn't going to be an issue around that, and Blake shouldn't be because of the large spaces they have. It goes back to Dale being a concern, right? Because of the way that school is laid out and some of the small areas in that school, we'd have to be a little creative over there. And we feel good about the way it would happen over at Wheelock with their space in Memorial. So we need to work that a bit, because no matter what, those kids have to be 6 feet apart at lunchtime. Transportation implications, bus capacity issues, that's a non-issue anymore. So when we put this letter together yesterday, that was an issue. It's no longer an issue for us, so we can check that off into the positive. Challenges around certain classrooms in our schools, especially at Dale Street. I think, as we've said now 3 times, Dale Street is a challenge. And some of those smaller rooms, when that was built, they weren't thinking about having larger classrooms. It was just desks and rows and not a lot of kids. So it's definitely changed since that school was built. So we'd have to look at that. And then our staffing, we need to look at that, especially if we see an increase in cohort D. So if we start to see, once we survey parents and get that information, if we start to see that there's an uptick in parents that say, you know what, thanks, Jeff, but I'm going to put my kid in cohort D for the rest of the year, then we just need to make sure we have the staffing for that, and we have the we have the available slots, because right now with cohort D, there's a couple of grade levels that are higher than others, and we probably need to have another staff member help out our existing staff member that's doing that. So I just wanted to bring that out there again, put it in writing, because we talked about it at our last meeting. It marinated a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and now we've really trying to tease out some of the issues and how we can get it, and some of the real positive aspects of what we're doing with the health and safety and all the protocols we've put in place, and how that can support in-person learning. Today's announcement on the transportation was just the icing on the cake for us. I mean, to me, that's just phenomenal news for us, and it just removes that barrier, which has been a barrier since September through all of this. So happy to talk about it or whatever, but I just wanted to make sure that I know you've had this memo, but I wanted to go through it so that folks that are attending the meeting can hear the information.
Are any members of the committee have questions? It looks like you have a question, Tim. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have 2. I might as well just put them both out there. One is just high level. What are you thinking about surveys and how soon? And then number 2 would take a little longer. And I know this is new, but I think of what are the factors that would drive scenario 1 versus scenario 2. And even would you, if for whatever reason, scenario 2, or scenario 2 was really difficult, would you ever have a bridge where something like Wheelock is March 15th? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And just more just I guess the thought process around how you put scenario 1 and 2 together and where you see that evolving.
Well, I think, from a transportation point of view, again, we did this before we had this information. From a transportation point of view, we wanted to keep the 2 elementary schools that weren't in person together, and then the middle and high school together in terms of transportation. This allows more flexibility, so we could absolutely do that in a way that we do one school and then another one and another one, and we do it in a phase-in fashion. We could certainly do that. As I said in the beginning, these are the 2 that we were working on, but it really could be a combination of the 2, or it could be neither. I mean, it's really just trying to figure out having enough time to gather the information from the parents, work with the teachers on how it's going to be set up and all of that, just giving us the time to do that. And like I said, it's like preparing, it's like the summertime preparing for the opening of a new school year and making sure we can get that. So next week, we're going to look at putting some rooms together in various schools just to see what it looks like, to see what the spacing looks like. And, I've contended from the beginning that I think Blake can probably get in at 4 feet. They don't have to be 3 because it's an old high school and the population is down there. I think you can probably get everybody in at 4, 4.5. But I think the other schools are going to have to be at 3, 3.5, maybe 4. But it's probably going to have to, it's going to be within that 3 to 6 threshold. I think that's where it needs to be, 3 to 6 measurement. It's going to have to be within those. But I think that's where, Tim, it's really flexible at this point. I just wanted to, again, continue to show that we're working on this. We're committed to it, and it may be something that is a combination of both of those, or bits and pieces. But that's what we're focused on right now. And we have been. I mean, we started this work when we started surveying parents with different models for elementary school months ago. So we're now ready to push this forward.
Okay, and
You
then
tell me-
one other, and then I'll open up. But for the desks and like furniture, is there a shortage if we are maintaining all desks and not tables? Like, would we need to acquire desks? Or are we thinking we would go back to tables? Or we haven't really thought that one.
No, I think we've looked at going back to tables, because if there's 6-foot tables, you can have one student on either end, and we can have one of the desk shields in the middle. So we've kind of put those together too, and see what that looks like. So that'd be a protection for the shield in the middle, because they have to be facing each other, so they could have a shield. So we looked at that. There's other rooms that have desks that never did, that would want tables back, and vice versa. So we just need to go through all of that and see how we would configure the rooms and do the measurements. Because the way we've done it, it's 6 feet between the kids. It's not 6 feet between the desks. So we did this in the summer. We put the chair in the desk, and we measured from the center of that chair to the center of the next chair. And that's how we did it, because you couldn't fit hardly any kids in if you did table desk by desk. So we did it from the center of the desk, center of the chair, to the next center of the chair. So it's more of a measurement from head to head versus end of the table to end of the table.
And I asked the surveys. How are you looking at the surveys? That was the first one. And I know.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So we're looking at probably doing that on the 1st of March to get a sense of where people are at. I think we're still working on some of the details here. We'll do that next week on vacation. If we're ahead of the game, we'll do it the week after vacation. If not, it'll be that first week of March.
Jeff, what are you thinking of asking within those surveys? Are you asking about whether people feel that they would not be able to send their kid back, or that they have concerns, or that they would need to take the bus? I mean, is it like, are we talking kind of opinion surveys around how this happens, or are we talking surveys around, like, will you go to cohort D? Will you take the bus?
Yes.
Will you?
The latter, yes. Yeah.
So very specifically around.
Very specific, the information that we need. And again, I was at MCP the other night, and I joked, because it doesn't matter what survey we send out, we get feedback on those, and I appreciate the feedback, but we try to get a survey for the information that we need to make decisions. And that's what we're gonna be working on over break, and certainly the week after. So it's going to be very specific to whether or not you want to be a part of coming full in person, or if you'd rather go to cohort D. Or, I mean, I know there's, I had preliminary discussions with the teachers yesterday, and they have lots of questions, and they should. I mean,
Yeah.
they should have lots of questions, and they still do. And we're going to meet again after to have more conversation. But, I think that's normal and natural to have lots of questions about what this might look like. So we're working on that end as well. And, but we need to get that survey data, no doubt.
Okay. So I think it's good that we're kind of going to have people kind of marinating this for a week or so before we get there. So really people can be thinking about what it is that they feel like they need to do and what they need to see in order to feel as though this is the best thing for their family.
Right, and it may not be the best thing for everyone's family, and that's fine, but that's what we have cohort D for. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think first off, I want to thank you and your team for, obviously, again, for the months of work that have gone into this and to finally get to this point. Obviously, we've all been hoping for this point for some time. So, and I also, the attention to, I think, as much detail. I know we're going to review the pool testing scenarios, I believe, tonight, and the more of that information that we can disseminate, I think the better. I know we've communicated, and I know how much work has gone into making our schools safe this year. And I think there's going to, like you said, there'll be a pause to many parents about that. So have as much outreach as we can around that, around making people understand what those precautions look like and the tracking that we already do now, but how it's going to shift with the pool testing, I think is great. And I think that's going to be just a very key factor for people to understand. The other item too is the, I guess I would just urge you to get that survey out sooner rather than later, just on the sense of not just for our planning, but then, or your planning for that matter. I say ours, but you know, you actually have to do all the work. Just so that families can prepare too. I have a feeling that in the town programs, right? Because this is obviously going to impact the town programs like MAP and others that are going to have to prepare. And they're obviously as much of a part of our community as everybody else. So yeah, I think it's I'm trying not to get too gushy about it because I'm excited for my children to go back. And I'm excited for the teachers to have as close to a normal classroom as they possibly can this year, because I know how hard it's been to do that, to be doing double duty in that sense, you know, planning 2 different lessons and 2 different pedagogies all at the same time. And so, yeah, and I agree with the way the numbers are going, and with the information we now have, and the vaccination is imminent. So, you know, I think this is a great move. I'm obviously in favor. I believe of scenario 2, because I know all the planning and the safety pieces in place here. And I think just one of the important things is to get that information out in numerous ways, so that people can feel safe about engaging in it. But
you know, I had the opportunity last week and this week to visit a lot of classrooms at all levels, and I have to say, our teachers are doing a phenomenal job with the live streaming. I mean, they really are. They've taken to it very, very quickly. Those that have never done it before, those that had done it from the beginning on. I mean, it's old hat now, but they've really done an incredible job and continue to work hard for our kids. And I think this is, you know, a natural progression now into getting what everybody wants, is some normalcy in a safe way. And you know, they double duty is a great way to describe it, right? Because when it was more asynchronous, they were doing lots of planning for the asynchronous lessons and then doing the live lessons. And now they're similarly doing some double duty with kids at home and kids in the classroom. So I think they've risen to the occasion, done a phenomenal job for us. And I think getting them back in full is the best thing we can do for everyone.
Yeah, and I think we should also emphasize that even when we go back in full, there are still possibilities in which we will have to pull back, do remote for a period of time, and then go back in. That you know, we have to continue to be thinking about the pivots that we need to do in order to be safe, you know, and to make sure that we're looking at every piece of data. And I think I want to make sure that people don't necessarily think that, you know, it's like we're in school and the virus is gone and we're ignoring any part of this. What we're doing is kind of doing a risk analysis at this point, that it's better for our kids to be in school. We need to get them there, and that we're finally getting some guidance and some relief in the regulatory kind of world, and not just messages, you know, without.
So I also expect that tomorrow we will get additional updated guidance from CDC.
Right.
I thought it was coming out yesterday, but the latest I've heard it was coming out tomorrow. And I just want to be clear, like you'll see in CDC, and you have to go beyond the headlines a little bit. So, you know, the headline, the Globe a couple of weeks ago, oh, Boston schools returning full in person. Well, not really. They were going to a hybrid, and they're still kind of all over the place. You have to kind of look at the details, and the definition around returning to in person is really towards those schools that haven't been in school since last March. You know, I think you look at what Biden said in terms of getting all schools open in the first 100 days, and what came out this week. That means every kid goes to school at least one day. So there are plenty of headlines out there. I just encourage people to kind of read below those a little bit, because, you know, Chicago's not in and New York's not in and Boston's not in, but they, you know, you hear these little bits and pieces, and it's not when we say reopening right now, we're talking about full in person. I just want to make a distinction between that. There's reopening, which is the kids that haven't been to school yet. And then there's full in person is what we're talking about right now.
Right. Well, and I guess that's, you know, and just to your point, I think that's the, you know, one of the I won't even call it a silver lining, but one of the outcomes of having to do so many pivots, I think our staff and our students are prepared now. And so even if student had to, you know, in this process, some students have to quarantine, our teachers now know how to Zoom them into the classroom. And, you know, for those couple of students, you know, and how to supply the appropriate digital materials to make sure that for that time they may have to quarantine, that they're still engaged. So, and I think that's the part that we're now prepared for, to take on, and still get the kids want to see their friends, and teachers want to see the kids, and the whole bit. So, you know, I mean.
I mean, my kid looks forward to a mask break because it's the
follow-up
only
question.
time. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yeah. You know, following up on what Leo's saying, and we've spent a great deal of time talking about this already, but I was just wondering if there's one thing that the parents can take away, Dr. Morrison, is what, I'm sure there are a lot of things, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but what got you to this point? Most significantly, do you think it was the transportation, or just like what are the points that, you know, like maybe the pool testing is what it is that made you more confident that we could do this? You know, I mean, obviously we've all learned more about the virus and its transmission, but I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I just want to know the process of how we're getting to where we are today.
I mean, it's been a long time, so it isn't something I woke up this morning and said, this is what we're going to do. I mean, this is something that we've been talking about for a month, right? And
right, and I want people to know that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been
bring us along on the journey.
It's been a long time coming, and we were at the peak. It just wasn't the right time. Right now, we're starting to see it go down. There's light at the end of the tunnel of that, but it wasn't the right time back then. But I don't know exactly when that happened. I mean, I think if there's anyone that doesn't want full in person or is still on the fence, I think by the time Dave Wordley finishes his presentation tonight, you might change your mind a bit, because that's part of it too. That's a big part of it for me. I mean, I just think it's a culmination of a lot of things. It's seeing those kids' faces when they all came back on the first day of kindergarten, you know, a month ago. It's seeing how that went. It's seeing how so many kids are struggling right now, and in their faces when they come in on those 2 days, you know, they love it. And now 3 days starting this week for Cohort B. So I think all those factors, and also seeing, quite frankly, I'm concerned about our teachers burning out with what they're doing right now. I mean, I think that's when we started very early on looking at that half-day model that we did with elementary, trying to do that. And we saw that early on as a real factor and concern that we had. Number one, kids need to be in school, but number two, not sure that our teachers could keep this up for an entire school year. It's a lot, you know, it's a lot. And if you haven't been in the classroom, you don't know. So you might say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It is. If you haven't been in the classroom, it's a big deal. So, you know, there's just a culmination of a lot of things, but I think the time is right in terms of where we are with the virus. You know, it could change, but we're in a really good, the tea leaves are really good with that right now. The data is really good around that. Again, you start, and I know there's some people that are going to roll their eyes that are watching this, but you know, the science all along has said that, right? I mean, they said zero, almost, you know, very low transmission in schools, especially at the younger grades, like all that. I mean, we've seen it firsthand. There's no in-school transmission here, folks. We've seen it firsthand. So it's time to move.
I also think that there is a point that that we've been looking at studies that say there's no in-school transmission, but so frequently that the N has been so small, or that the methodology hasn't been as rigorous as it would be in normal times, that I think it's been right to be cautious about it
Yeah,
and to
absolutely.
make sure. And I think that that's really where we are, is that we've finally seen enough that we know, and that we have always wanted to get kids back. And that we as a community will also have to redouble our efforts around not spreading within the community, because that is what's happening. When we do have cases, it is community spread. And it is those moments where you think that you can take off your mask and you can have, that you've got a pod. And I'm not sure that there is such a thing as a pod right now, and I think that we have to ask the community to be even more vigilant than we have been. And I can speak to myself personally as well around that. So that we can keep kids in school for as much time as we possibly can and get them there as soon as we possibly can. And that we will continue to be looking at things like, everybody's tired of me, but the variants that are coming through and how we continue to do mitigation around that and what that is looking like. But with the pool testing, I feel significantly more confident that regardless of what's happening in the community, we can know what's happening in our schools, and we can head off much larger events that would be much less safe and much more. I would be much more risk adverse to it if I didn't know that we were bringing in pool testing, and that in general, we as a country and as a state are now doing more genetic testing on our PCR testing and our positives than we have been previously. And that gives me a level of confidence that I wasn't sure that I would have had earlier this year.
And I would say we haven't, you look around the state, there's plenty of other places that shut down numerous times,
Yeah.
right? We've had to shut down sports for 1 week. We had to shut down for 1 day at the high school level. We haven't really shut down a lot as far
Right.
as
Right.
compared to other places that have done it numerous times. So
Yeah.
even in the pivots, we haven't really done many pivots either. It's been hybrid, and it's February, whatever it is, and we're still in school. So
Right.
I think that's been great. And it's, the kids have been great in terms of following the mitigation strategies at school. They've been great with that. Everyone has a mask. They're washing their hands all the time. They're sanitizing their hands. They're doing a great job of that. So I think those are the key pieces that if those are in place, then we can start moving forward. And again, we've really done well in that regard.
Yeah. I think next
been
time,
doing-
if we could also make sure that we tell kids that brushing their teeth is also disease prevention. And we probably get a much stronger parent response too. But
Yeah, I will say they've been doing the pool testing for a few weeks now in Sharon, and it's they haven't seen a huge spike. It comes back, and they've got a process for it, and but it's been going very well, allowing them to to try to sell being back safe. But I'll say that on average, my wife still only has 2 or 3 students in her classroom at any given time because they have an option to stay home, and it's having a tough effect there. So they're trying to get more kids back into school as well. But that pool testing is a key factor in that process. So.
all right, Dr. Marson, you have.
Did you say that because February is National Dental Health Month too?
No, it's because I struggle. Dr. Marson, do we have Kathy here? Do you want to have her present
Sure.
next on her?
Owen, can you bring Kathy over? I just want to say, Kathy and the nursing staff have been outstanding this year.
Amazing.
They always do a great job, but they've gone above and beyond, working a zillion hours, working on weekends. It's just really something. So I just want to make sure that we recognize the incredible effort that they've had this year and the important role they played in keeping us safe in school for so long. Owen, can you send Kathy over?
Sure.
Thank you. There she is. Hey, Kathy. Kathy, you're on mute if you want to start just to discuss the COVID testing. I mean, the pool testing, excuse me.
Super. Thank you so much for having me. I first wanted to talk a little bit about where we are. We currently have, it's worked really well having two spaces, both the well nurse's office for non-COVID symptomatic kids, as well as the medical waiting room and tents with teachers calling before they send kids down. So that's been really great. Really appreciate the extra staffing that we've been allowed this year. So far, we've had 103 positive cases since the beginning in September. We've only had one positive case this week, which is great. We've had very few cases at the elementary level, 11 at Memorial, 9 at Wheelock, 11 at Dale, 28 at Blake, and 44 at the high school. We did see a couple of cases on a sports team, but with contact tracing, that was revealed to be due to a social group outside of school. The contact tracing has been, really helpful for the nurses and the public health nurses working together. So we started using rapid antigen testing, which was provided by the state right before the holiday break. We piloted that for a week with staff. We were allotted 6 shipments of 400 tests each, and we've gone through our first shipment. So we're right into the early 400s for the number of tests. Now, this isn't the PCR, which is the gold standard test. It's a rapid antigen test. So if a test is positive, it is positive and treated as a positive case. If it's negative and the child is symptomatic and meets the guidelines to have a PCR test, if it's just a stuffy nose, you can actually send a child back to class. We've used them a couple of times even with anxious kids that really don't meet the guidelines, but we're concerned about COVID. So they have been really helpful. They've been helpful also, probably most importantly, to get positive kids out of school, which we had in a couple cases, as well as a couple staff members. And then you can immediately start your contact tracing, which has been great. We were approved to start with pooled testing, which is great. It's supposed to arrive tomorrow, our shipments to all the schools, and that is the PCR test. And it will be pooled because it's cheaper to do a pool of, you have like a dozen kids in a classroom, do a nasal swab, just the very front of the nose. Kids can do it themselves. The guideline says any second grader and up. I've actually, had a kindergartner who, I just talked through it, which, it's much easier, holding your own Q-tip than having somebody put it up your nose. So, it's really easy for students. So instead of an individual PCR test, which can cost anywhere from $80 to $120, a whole classroom will do it, say 10 or 12 kids. They will all go into a large test tube, and those will be sent off to the lab ready in 24 to 48 hours. They get FedExed, and we'll get those results back. Most times they're negative. Any of the schools that have presented to us, they've had very few cases, but when you do, you can then take those 10 kids and they would have an individual Binax antigen test that we currently have in the school. So we can, get that done pretty quickly. Kids don't have to miss any school while they're doing this. In the rare case that somebody in that pool wasn't picked up, they would have to have individual PCR tests done. But DESE has come out and said, you wouldn't have known about these kids anyway, that nobody has to miss in-person learning, for that day or two while those PCR results come back. So it'll give us a really good sense of, what the acuity is in our schools, and if we do have infections going on, and that we can pick that up really quickly. And I think that will give, both teachers, and families a good sense of where we're at. The most important thing would be getting enough people to buy into this and to do that, both staff and kids, so that, we have enough data, to determine that.
So Kathy, can I ask, it's the random nature of picking the pool that actually allows us to surveil this. Is that correct?
Well, every student whose parent gives consent would be doing it twice a week.
Okay.
We thought that we would start just based on our numbers and where their spread is. Again, when we look at our elementary kids, most of our spread, as Dr. Marston said, can be pinpointed back to parents, grandparents, or the siblings that were part of, a positive pool at a positive cluster at the high school from like a social gathering. We did have several younger siblings that came out positive in that group. So we thought we would start piloting it with the middle and high school. We would have to do that all in one period. That's a little more challenging than an elementary level, but administration at the Blake Middle School and the nurses have already worked out a program and how they would get that done. I guess lunch and 10 minutes was added on to lunch already this year. So they'll pull kids out at the beginning or end of their lunch break and do that. Takes literally, less than a minute, once you show kids how to do that, it'll become very routine. And we'll go from there. So I think we have enough staffing. It's nice. We actually have 3 of the buildings that have a second nurse. So we pull those, as well as our athletic trainer has volunteered to help, which is fantastic. So we should have enough people order these great carts, and, we should be able to get it done, I think, pretty quickly.
Okay. All right.
So that the first 5 weeks of this is paid for by the Shaw Foundation. So those are the folks that own Wayfair. So keep shopping at Wayfair because they are doing a nice job for all the districts that want to participate in this. They're paying for the first 5 weeks, and then we need to make a decision prior to that on whether we continue for the rest of the year, which I think we're probably going to try to. But then we start to encumber that cost. So that's another, decision, another issue for another day. But we wanted to get started with this right away, and then we can make that decision as we go through the process.
We know what the cost is per week?
I do.
Oh,
So there's a setup cost, which would be covered by the state. That's sort of the biggest cost, as well as, they send label makers and all the test tubes and the swabs, and that's all paid for upfront by the state. And then there's a monthly charge that's anywhere from $250 to $500 a month, and a per test tube processing, as well as your shipping costs. So we'll be figuring all that out depending on, again, the number of students that we'll be doing, as well as staff. We'll be doing staff at all levels, and again, students beginning with Blake and Medfield High School, and we'll reevaluate from there.
very good.
See, does anybody on the committee have questions? Kathy, do you have anything else you want to add around that? Anybody on the committee have any thoughts? And then I'm actually going to ask Andrew, because I thought Andrew would have some pretty good insight into how open kids would be to volunteering at the kind of higher ages, or the ages in which they could or would choose to volunteer themselves, because we do have 18-year-olds in the school, but also kind of how it sounds to him as a student within the schools, and maybe some ways that we can help bring people in so that they truly do want to volunteer for this. And I actually have a quick question. You were talking about the nasal swab. I am going to be able to take my first PCR. I was really hoping that I wasn't going to have to do this, and this wouldn't be on my bingo card, but I will on Sunday. And it is definitely like the brain scratcher one. But these are different than that, right?
Yes, these are a Q-tip, so no
These are
brain
small
tickler, a
Q-tip.
little regular sized Q-tip, and kids put it in the front of their nose. So really just the cotton part goes up, and we'll be explaining how to do that with the kids.
Because I think that that's one of those things that parents would be most concerned about, that their kid would be uncomfortable, or, there would be something to be difficult to kind of
Yep.
do.
And that, even at the Dale Street level, I do lots of the Binex tests now with kids, and they do a great job doing it by themselves. They're relieved to be able to do it by themselves sometimes a little encouragement has to go up a little more, call it more particular, then definitely, those long swabs that kids have seen on commercials are very scary to kids. But again, we've been doing the Binex testing now for several months, and kids are used to that and think it's very, very easy. Most kids, again, a kindergartner that I did it with said it was, like a tickle. So when you're doing it yourself, it's a lot. Nobody wants anything put up their nose. So I think that's really
I gotta say, I gotta thank you,
Hold on,
Kathy.
I got
I
you
experienced
work
it
in
firsthand.
elementary school, are you sure?
I experienced it with Kathy firsthand when she had to do my son, and she. I have to say first, thank you for everything you're doing for the schools this year, Kathy. First off, but I will say your bedside manner is irreplaceable. Because you had Henry felt as confident as ever of sticking that thing up his nose. So
The kids do a great job.
yes,
And we will be sending information. Everything went out to staff yesterday, and a lot of information will be going out to families. The high school nurses actually are writing something up for students, thinking that, it would be important to get buy-in from students too. That, especially, if we know where infection rates are, we can keep kids in school, we can keep kids playing sports and doing all the things that they want to do. So I think it will be a really good thing. I know there'll be lots of questions on it, but I think, there's many of our students have had multiple tests already. So I think a lot of kids are aware of what it is. So we should be able to do it, I think, really, really quickly and without taking time out of learning or, being uncomfortable for kids.
All right, so with that, I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead, or Megan, I wasn't sure.
I was just wondering
Megan,
how-
I want to hear from you first. Your question might be mine, please.
Me? Okay. Just how do you plan to disseminate information that you collect out of these pool tests?
Yep, so there's no individual information that come from the pool. They don't have, we'll label it, Mrs. So-and-so's class and send it off. We will know who it's sent off, but the company will not. For the BINEX testing, lots of families have already set up, with Project Beacon to have their results, so they can have results sent right to their emails. The nurses always call anyway with results, but that way, a lot of times kids will need it if they're on like a club sports team or something. They need that result to get back in. So that's been really great that, it's right in their email or on their phone that they can just show to a coach or whatever their activity is. So,
And Tim, did you,
Yeah,
get
my
your
question is,
your question answered?
yeah, the 2 times per week, was that under the hybrid model, so each cohort gets it, or, and
Yes.
then would that shift? Should we hit some of those dates? Because I'm
Yes.
guessing your 5 weeks, you lose it.
yeah.
So-
So, well, we're not going to lose it. Hopefully, I'm hopeful that we'll continue it, or
No, I'm
vaccines
sorry.
change
It would be compressed if you were doing
Yes.
it 2 times a week.
So
or
right
twice-
now we're doing it twice a week, but once a week per student. So there'll
Okay.
be, cohort A, cohort B, we'll probably do it Monday and Thursday just so we can get results back and be able to make some decisions before kids come back into school. So I think those days will work well. Kids will go with whatever cohort is their major cohort. Certainly, we'll try and get it done, by like 1 o'clock in the day. So if you missed a kid, you could track them down and find them.
Kathy and Jeff and we're intending to continue this pool testing right to the end of the school year, correct?
That's the goal.
Funded.
What's that? Sorry.
Yeah, that's the goal. Absolutely. We just have to figure out the funding and how that's going to work for us.
It's like nothing.
Hence, we freeze the budget. Yeah, that's
That's part
And
of it.
this, can any
Yeah.
part of this, and I do really want Andrew to get in here, so thank you for
Yes.
your patience, but is any part of this coverable through the CARES Act? Or is this, one would assume that this would be a CARES Act kind of thing, but
Yeah, that money's
it
gone.
had some strange,
Don't have any
We were told by the town that that's gone. So
all right, okay. So Andrew, actually, I really did want to talk to you about this and kind of get your beat on it, because you actually still have younger siblings too. in this case.
Yeah. If I just ask Mrs. Thompson a question really quickly, so how many people are on each test?
So you can do up to 25 in a pool, but currently, most of our classes are probably 10 or 12 kids. We would do that and the teacher in each pool currently.
Okay.
Again, they can take up to 25, but especially right now when we're not paying for it, I'd rather keep the pool smaller so that if a kid did need, a group did test positive, it'd be less people that you would have to retest. And be done that way. We won't have teachers all, at the elementary, even though we're not doing classrooms, we won't throw all the teachers into one pool, because we would not want all our teachers out waiting for, a test result. But again, we can use the BINEX Now ones, but we'll make the pools of teachers, probably put 4 teachers in a test tube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I asked that because I know you're not doing it at the elementary school level. So I was wondering how, I think that's what Mrs. Rowley's trying to ask right now, is how, like, do you incentivize kids to like voluntarily take the test if it's not like so-and-so's classroom? It's not that black and white in high school where, you know, we're moving through 7 different classrooms with 7 different groups of people throughout the day. So I honestly don't have an answer for that. I might have to think more about like how you're going to actually incentivize people, because if it's 10 people at first and then we start paying for them ourselves and it's up to 25 people or however many it is, might be kind of hard to fill that every week, just people, you know, being good doobies and raising their hands to do it. So whatever that incentive may be, that's definitely something to think about. I'll keep that in the back burner.
Well, how about an incentive to stay in school?
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
I wasn't thinking of prizes, but
I wasn't either.
maybe we should.
yeah, I think like
but
maintaining the status quo is not always the best motivation when it comes to
Yes.
16-year-olds. So.
Well, it
We
will-
would, but
it will-
Andrew,
seriously,
you get some prizes in mind, Andrew?
I don't know. I mean, like
I'd be open.
that's something that's still up in the air for me. But I'm saying, like, I mean, maintaining the status quo for a bunch of 16-year-olds, I mean, is not really going to change the thing.
Yeah.
At least the way that I
So
see it.
the email, you know, will go out to families. Of course, students that are over 18 can consent or not consent, but it's not that really students raising their hand as whether they're going to do it. We will have a list and which parents have given consent for their kids
Right.
to do it.
Okay.
You know, we're not looking to force children to do it. We would hope that families would have a discussion about that.
right.
Andrew, the night children may get some incentives from home.
Oh, there you go. Okay. I'm doing out the back end of it.
All right. Anything else, Andrew, actually, or Anna Mae, do you have something you'd like to say? I don't, for some reason it popped up on my screen. So, but then I want to circle back to Andrew.
Yeah, no, I just want to express my gratitude to Kathy and all the nurses. I mean, the grace under craziness has been so, it's been calming to the, you know, when you get that phone call. Anyways,
Good.
You women have been phenomenal. And I know you have been working well above your hours and then some. So again, thank you.
Yep, no, everyone works hard, teachers and nurses, but no, I appreciate that. And I also appreciate Dr. Marsden, everything that comes across my desk that, you know, we can do, he has said yes to without pretty much, you know, a second thought, which has been really, really appreciated. So it's great that we can have all these things in school. I know not all school districts have that. So it's really great. And, you know, having the drive up testing too, I was really concerned about doing the Binex testing. My one concern that parents might send sick kids to school and say, go see the nurse and have a test. And by allowing parents to call and say, no, you can just drive up, we'll go in out with full PPE and do your test and keep your kid out of school. That's worked. We haven't done it a lot, but that's really helped, I think, to, you know, keep the well children in and the sick kids home. And
It was amazingly easy, Kathy, I have to say. It was amazingly easy. Thank you so much for everything. I'll echo everything Anna Mae has said. It's absolutely, I'm actually, the way that people have pulled together in the schools is definitely moving. And it's actually, I'm actually tearing up a smidgen because I feel like it is, hearing you talk about it is, you know, reminds us about there's a large community that has come together to make sure that these kids get to school. So
yeah, everybody's working really hard. Nope, it's great to be a part of that. Yes, and thank you all for all you do. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Andrew, thank you, Kathy. So appreciate this. If you want to just hang for a second so that if we have additional questions around kind of the medical aspects of this, or, you know, kind of where you see that. But Andrew, do you have other things that as you were listening to the reentry plans that occur to you that would be, I mean, really just kind of, can you provide us your thoughts around that? Because you know.
Yeah, well, so I know Dr. Marsden was talking about like the April 5th, like week of March 22nd, those kind of dates, because I know the teachers are eligible before the general public, but I know that the vaccine has now been approved. I guess it has been approved for people who are 16 and over. So that's a large population of the high school. So I was wondering if that like might contribute to reopening in the high school, because we could have, you know, a percentage of students vaccinated too, along with teachers.
Yes, they're unfortunately not going to be done for a bit yet. We have to move through the phases, and the kids are down the line because, the positive cases really are, with the old, elderly, and they're working their way down. Teachers will hopefully be done very soon. We're working very hard to make that happen. So yes, kids will be done at some point, but probably that won't come into play, I wouldn't think, this spring.
Right. Yeah. Because I was just reading on the website, like the phase, I think it said phase 3 starts in April. So
Yeah.
I mean, that.
So for some kids, yes,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Yeah.
Anything
That's a
else?
surprise, Andrew. You get vaccinated.
Really, that'd be a good prize. I'd take it.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I don't have any other comments from the committee, I am going to open this up to a public comment. But I want to be aware of time and to
Madam
really.
Chair, can I ask?
Yes, please.
Is this going to be public comment for the school learning model progress, the entire thing?
Yeah.
Or just, okay, could I just add one more thing before we do that?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I just want to just give an update on the technology piece at the middle school.
Oh,
high
thank
school.
you. Yes.
So I know that Owen had spoken at the last meeting. We continue to work with our consultants and lots of other folks. We had a really good day today. There were no real issues today. Decent day yesterday. Day before was another good day. But I just need to kind of put out here what we've kind of. If you saw today's Globe, there's an article in the business section, which they interviewed me for part of it. Hackers plague mass schools. And they mentioned Medfield, and they have Winthrop, and they have Tingsboro, Sandwich, Norton, Duxbury as other districts. I'm actually good friends with the Duxbury superintendent, had a conversation with him, and his issues were sounding very much like ours. So, it's disappointing to say this right now, but it looks, everything is pointing to a member of our school community that has been causing some of these outages on our network. There's been conversations with members of high school that point to the fact that it is a member of our school community that has been causing this. It's not our network. The attacks are coming from inside, so to speak. And we have some surveillance software going now. We have some other things going now as well that I don't want to get into details, but I just wanted to kind of put it out there that it's extremely disappointing that what we've been dealing with for the past 3 or 4 weeks now has been from the inside. And I just want to get it out there that let you guys know that we're still working on it. Again, a positive day today with no interruptions for the middle school and high school. And we're hoping that that's what it's going to be like going forward. We put some anti-DDoS software, those kinds of things on our network. And it's just disappointing. I guess I'll leave it at that.
It is. Thank you.
And I would say that because of the cost associated with this, the grant that we are getting from the federal government, which, many other districts are getting hundreds of thousands and millions out of it, that we're getting 177,000 out of it, that we've had to put a pretty good portion of that toward what we've spent on technology for the last 4 weeks, instead of putting it towards the pool testing for the rest of the year. So really disappointing. And we're, again, still working on pinpointing exactly where those came from. But just want to get it out there.
Actions have consequences, even if you're bored, even if you think it's funny. Does anybody have any comments about that before I do open this to public comment? And I do want to make sure that we know that public comment is indeed, please give us your comment and your thoughts, but this is not a question and answer period for this one. So anyone else on the committee? I think I'm not seeing Tim right now. Let me look at my view. Tim, we're good. Okay. All right, so I will open this to public comment if, again, 3 minutes. And if you want to raise your hand, feel free. I'll give you a minute or so. And we will bring you over. The first, I saw a hand go up and then it went away.
That was me. I accidentally hit the button. Sorry.
Oh, Andrew. That's a meeting foul. Anyone? No? Okay. Oh, Michelle. All right, Michelle, would you like to come over? Oh, and can you bring her over, please?
Hi there. Thanks so much. I just want to share Michelle Lederhose of Evergreen Way. I just want to say, gosh, I'm in tears over here. Thank you so much. I know everyone has been doing such an amazing job. I just had two comments that I wanted to make around the bus transportation. What great news. I received an email today. My daughter's in first grade that she would be getting the busing on 2 different buses. I think we have about 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 buses coming around our neighborhood on a daily basis. But I hope the transportation team does think a little bit about maybe even keeping the busing together with schools. So maybe Memorial can be on a bus, Wheelock can be on a bus, Dale. I know I'm simplifying it completely, but there is something to be said with having the same age group, or at least schools kind of on the same bus transporting to and from together. Neighborhoods is another great next step. But that was something that just popped into my head when you were thinking about the next phase of bus transportation.
Sure.
Another comment I had is, I think Tim had brought it up, is a really great point of looking at Memorial and Wheelock together. And, you know, as we hear that Dale may be a space issue, it sounds like it's being able to be worked out at Memorial, but it may be potentially at Wheelock, where there is obviously more space at Wheelock. So I know my 3rd grader is at Wheelock and he has a huge room. And so if that can be looked at together separate, then maybe high school or even Dale and definitely middle school and high school, and maybe even Dale, I think that's a great step in the right direction. And then my 3rd point was just really around the idea that, you know, this is just a dream if the kids can get back to school 4 or 5 days a week. But yes, I would love to see that with that launch, there is a plan that if we do end up quarantining or back to asynchronous learning, that there is a plan for that. We just can't have the kids just on a virtual notebook, you know, for those days or during that time with no teacher contact and no peer-to-peer contact. So I think that those expectations for both the teachers and for the schools and even for the specialists, reading support and more, if those are all clearly, you know, well thought through and the expectations are clear to all the parties, that's going to be super helpful as well.
Great points.
But thank you all. What a great meeting.
Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, the next person I have is Steve, and I am going to make an intuitive leap that might be Steve Caskey. But if it isn't, we'll find out soon. Owen, can you bring him over?
Thank you.
Hi, Steve.
Hi. So thanks for doing the meeting tonight. I appreciate it. Also, Jess, you mentioned we finally have guidance and relief. November 20th, I sent you an email detailing DESI's, the World Health Organization, and the AEP's guidelines for a safe return. January 7th, I also sent you another email about distancing, and you responded, the CDC continues to promote 6 feet distances as a safe safety standard. Why haven't we used DESI standards months ago? Our kids have lost months of school while dwelling at the bottom 5% of all districts in live learning hours. I have asked on 2 separate occasions to take a vote to bring our kids back to school. What has changed if we're not going to follow the CDC guidelines? I'm glad we have these dates, but it seems like the control lies with the Teachers Association. Should we expect any holdups with getting our kids back to school? And also, Jeff, to your point, Joe Biden's press secretary said the White House, this was released today, now says Biden's goal is to have schools open 5 days a week in person. They stress they will follow the guidance of science and medical experts on how to return safely. That was CNN, so you have to take it for what it's worth, but that was released today. Thank you.
All right. Thank
Thank
you, Steve. Okay. And let's see. Laura McCullough. If you want to bring her over.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you to Kathy, who's been a lifesaver during all of this, and all of you guys for having these dates be a goal that we are looking forward to. The one thing that I will say, as you know, a pediatrician seeing patients throughout this, is that there is zero doubt that the mental health toll has been huge on our children. And, you know, I've had numerous conversations with psychiatrists in our medical community about this, that this is, you know, adjustment, that this is a bad situation that is taking a mental health toll on our kids, but not something that is, you know, essentially that medications are going to work for and things like that. The flip side of that is that bringing our kids back to school, while it is absolutely 100% what needs to happen for the mental health of our kids, isn't going to automatically fix those problems and make them better. So I just want to put a plea out to our community, out to our teachers, out to all of our fabulous school nurses, our psychologists, parents, that as kids reintegrate, it's going to be another kind of culture shock, and we're going to have to watch our kids through that. I think the SEL committee is going to be huge during that, and I think that we are all going to have to bind together as a community to watch our kids and help support them.
Thank you, Laura. I was wondering if you were setting us up for our SEL.
Well,
our
I don't know if
SEL.
there was no plan for that, but you know, here I'm.
But well done. Thank you. And just want to make sure that you are done with your comment now. I don't want to cut you off if you are.
I am all done. I'm getting kids to
All
bed
right.
right now, so that's
Okay.
perfect.
Thank you so much for hanging with us.
Thanks.
I have not seen any other hands raised. So I think that at this point, we're going to move on so that we can get to our very, well, is there anything else that we want to add to this particular discussion? There's no votes or anything that need to happen here, but, and it's been extensive, but I want to make sure that we're.
I hate to be a pain, but can I just add one more thing?
You maybe can. Yes. All right. Yes.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the data and the testing data. As we know, we do progress monitoring and testing at different benchmarks at the elementary schools, and just some of the data that's coming out of elementary schools right now, because I know that's on the mind of everyone and mind of parents. We keep hearing constantly about learning loss, and we keep hearing about it. But I want to give you some real data around what Medfield kids are doing right now. We do benchmark testing, as you know, through a lot of our students, and Christine Power gave me some information today that I thought was just good to share. I mean, it's not an agenda item. It's just part of the learning progress and see where we are. You know, so at Memorial School in the mathematics area, they've done some testing, and in grade kindergarten right now, with an N of 157 students, 97% of the students met the standard in both counting and cardinality domain, which is really on par for where they should be right now if we were in a regular brick and mortar kind of school, which is just fantastic. In grade 1, 93% of our students met the standard in the operations and algebraic thinking domain, which is 173 students who are part of that. So, I mean, there's definitely some really great learning going on, and kids are progressing. So I don't want everyone to get caught into that trap of learning loss. Is there some learning loss? Of course, right? But I think there's some really good stories coming out of this too. And we've looked at kids learning in different ways. In Wheelock and Dale, we do assessments with Renaissance Learning and the STAR assessment. And what they typically do in mathematics, and they look at growth much like the growth percentile in MCAS. You look at an average growth of being between 40 and 60. That's what you want to look at in terms of student growth numbers. And you know, the fall of in winter 2020, so right at the end of this year, it's this school year, but the end of the calendar year, we saw student growth numbers as 63 in grade 2, 51 in grade 3, 56 in grade 4, 58 in grade 5. So again, really good, high average kind of growth in mathematics from our kids. And if you look at it longitudinally, you'll see there's growth from second, third, fourth, and fifth grade as well over time, starting in 2018. So I just want us to be clear about that there's definitely some outstanding learning and teaching going on from our teachers, and that kids are still progressing in a way that we want them to. Now, in mathematics, we've looked at the curricula, and I know that Christine has worked with teachers and the principals, and we've looked at really establishing those power standards at the elementary level, those key concepts that kids have to know. They have to know before they go to the next grade. What are the key things? And that's what our teachers have done a great job focusing on, and it's really starting to show in the data. And then at Dale Street, almost 80% of all of our students are performing at or above benchmark in grades 4 and 5 in mathematics. So I'm just keen on mathematics because that's what the data I got today, but I just want to share that it's important that there's great teaching going on still, and there's great learning going on, and our kids are progressing in a way that is appropriate for where they are in their grade level. So just wanted to share that.
Okay, great. And actually, this probably would be in terms of learning progress, because I want to make sure that we do announce this in open meeting, that we did sign the MOA for the increased student learning time with the union that we have been acting under since we had an agreement or an unsigned agreement on January 19th. When did we do that?
The 19th, yes.
The 19th, right. So we are kind of official on that. They ratified, and we have voted on it in executive session. And we will obviously, or I will sign it when I am able to come into the office, but and perhaps I should make that happen sooner rather than later. But I just wanted to let people know that we had indeed finished those particular negotiations at this point around that MOA.
And I had a couple of parents reach out to me during this, and I said that as soon as it was ratified by both parties and signed, that we posted on the website next to all the other contract stuff. So we'll do that once that's done.
Maybe I'll meet you outside town hall tomorrow. We can figure that out. Right.
Okay.
But I did want to make sure. Okay, so this is turning into an even longer meeting than we thought it might be. But again, always the most important thing is our kids. So I'm going to move on to new business. And we have our high school advisory. And so is Catherine Bannister here? She's in
Actually,
9th grade.
It's Olivia Stanton is going to fill in for her.
Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. Olivia, are you there?
She just had her hand up, I think.
Did she? All right, Owen,
Yes.
hit it. There you go. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here in place for Catherine today, and I was just gonna quickly talk about our fundraiser, which we have been selling some sweatshirts and joggers just to have money for later future events that we're hoping to have. That was sent out to the entire high school as well as posted in our Facebook group. We are in the process of trying to get an extension right now because the store is closing soon. So we're just waiting for an email back about that. But that link is sent out in email as well as in Facebook. We are starting to think of some new fundraisers as well, which will have more updates to come on that. And I also just wanted to add about the freshmen, I guess everyone, but the adjustment to the new schedule going in on Wednesdays, having the backward schedule. It's new, but so far it's going pretty good, as well as seeing lots of improvements in the Wi-Fi, especially today. So that was really nice to be able to see. And yeah, so just keep your lookout for that fundraiser because it's some good stuff and everyone should consider purchasing.
So Olivia, is it in the, was it also posted in the high school updates that parents would get? Because I know that sometimes
No, I don't think so. I know it was sent out by Mr. Sperling to all of the high school students. But yeah, I could definitely reach out about seeing if we do get that extension to send it out in those updates as well.
Because sometimes it's the parents who purchase it and just,
I'm sure. Yeah,
put it
absolutely.
out there. So yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Olivia.
And welcome. Is this your, yes, great.
Well done, Olivia.
So Elizabeth for 10th grade, Elizabeth Pantiaco, are you there? There you are, hand raised. You guys are great. Thank you. It makes it so much easier.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Pantiaco, and I'm the representative for the class of 2023. First, I would just like to say that it is so exciting to hear that we could possibly go back to school full time. It's been almost a year, and I know I'm very eager to get back, so it's great news. Currently in the high school, I would say about a month, I'm not sure, time's kind of all clustered together, but we've started to do synchronized learning now. So we're on our remote days, we're zooming in with classes. And personally, I think, and the people that I've spoken to, that's really helpful because we're like more together as a class, things seem more organized, and it's just better than not doing not fully being interactive with the classes.
Good catch, Elizabeth.
What, Jeff?
Sorry, what?
I said, good catch, Elizabeth.
Yeah, that's not. Also, Wednesdays, we've started to go back and for half days. So my cohort B, we just did that this Wednesday. Obviously, it's difficult getting up at 6:30 for another day, but it was great being back in school, and it's only a half day, so it's not bad at all. The high school actually went back to its normal format. So it's just small things like that make school seem more normal. So I definitely like it, and a lot of people really appreciate that. So sports, winter sports coming to a close. Everyone enjoyed them. Now fall 2 sports are coming, which is really exciting. Definitely different having football in the winter. So that'll be exciting. I also know that the high school play is tonight. I'm not sure if it's still going on, but I've heard that it's really well produced. So that's really awesome. And regarding student government, we were selling blankets for a while. It was posted on Friends of Medfield, and it was also in the school posts for a while. And I'm really happy to say that we made over $1,500, and we're still not done collecting all the money. So that's one of the great things that happened. And yeah, right now we're just all looking forward to February break. We're really excited.
Elizabeth, I loved that fundraiser. I bought 4 and gave them as Christmas presents to my niece and nephew who are alumni, and to my kids. And I'm the one who's stolen them both. They're nice and heavy. They're great. Anytime you want to do that again, it's a great fundraiser.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna continue doing this because we didn't expect this overwhelming support. So the next upcoming years we do this, it'll definitely be more organized. This is more just like a rough draft. So
it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, are you set?
Right now I'm all done. Thank you.
Okay, great. Carrie White, can you raise your hand? There she is. Great. Carrie, come on over. I see you. Just untoggle yourself, and unless Owen, are you muted?
Organized. Okay. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carrie White, and I'm the representative to the school committee for the class of 2022. Since the last time we met, things have been going well. I feel like I say that every time, but the new way of school is a lot of adjusting, and I think that the junior class is adjusting really well and making the most out of the situation. And then a lot of the stuff I have is basically just reiterating what Elizabeth said, but with semester 2 starting, along with the synchronized learning model, things obviously have changed. And at the start of the synchronized learning, it seemed like it would be kind of a pain being on Zoom the whole remote day, which, don't get me wrong, it is tiring, but it has allowed a lot more structure. And personally, I think that it's much more beneficial than the 5-minute check-ins that we used to have. And as you know, the Wi-Fi has been a big problem recently, which was super frustrating, but with semester 2 starting up, all the teachers are back in their normal classrooms, like Elizabeth was talking about, which means we actually get to travel from class to class, which is really nice. And I've only heard good things about it. It is super refreshing to be able to walk through the halls again and pass faces that we wouldn't normally see. And it feels like how school used to be. It has always started, it has also started to help the Wi-Fi for a lot of my teachers and a lot of the kids zooming into classes. So I think that that's going to be super helpful moving forward. And then I am also in Cohort B. So this week we were able to go into school on Wednesday for the first time since March. So from the other students in my grade, I've heard how hopeful they are, since this seems like another step in the right direction. And I've also heard some complaints about it since Wednesdays, people feel we're like the only day of the week where we could actually like see and be with our entire class, like on Zoom. At least we could like be with both cohorts. And now, since we're in school on Wednesdays, like we still don't get to see the other cohort, which is better for like learning, obviously. But then I guess the feeling of like having your whole class is like has turned into like a small divide into like a much bigger separation between the cohorts. And then for the class of 2022 student government, we just finished our can collection, and it was super successful, and we received thousands of cans from many Medfield residents. So a huge thank you to everyone who was kind enough to donate their saved cans. It means a lot to us. And it took us a couple of days, but we have finished counting them all and have been taking trips to the Can Redemption Center in Walpole. So we're just kind of collecting money now, and that money will be a huge help for our prom funds. And speaking of prom, we have chosen our prom committee, and the class officers and I have been working hard with the senior class officers, which maybe Ava will talk about, but we're starting to think about ways we can have prom, hopefully. So there's still a lot of work to do, but we are excited to keep planning, and we think that we can hopefully pull it off somehow. And then overall, the junior class is hanging in there, and we're definitely excited for February break as well. So I hope everyone is staying healthy, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Carrie. That can collection was, I think I saw something just the other day where somebody was like, are they still collecting cans? I
know, I keep getting so many Facebook messages, but I think we're going to try to do another one like in the coming months because it was really successful. So.
All right, great. And so now Ava, are you there to, thank you, appreciate it.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Ava O'Toole, and I am representative for the class of 2021. First of all, I want to say that it's really exciting, especially as a senior, to hear that like there's a possibility that our whole class could be together before we graduate. And I'm sure that a bunch of other students will feel the same way. Kind of as Carrie and Elizabeth said, the synchronized learning has been going pretty well besides the Wi-Fi issues. So, and same with Wednesdays, the new Wednesday schedule. So I think with the Wi-Fi issues, we haven't really had a real gauge on exactly how well it's going since we've had so many issues that it just seems like it's been bad this whole time. So I think within the next coming weeks when we get, since the Wi-Fi has resolved, especially today, we'll have a better idea of how successful it actually is. I know I've heard from both students and teachers with the Wednesdays that they've been happy and unhappy. Like as Carrie said, the Wednesdays were kind of a time where the teachers and students could see each other without masks, kind of get to know each other, what their faces looked like. And I think that the Wednesdays returning in person, especially the shortened days, it was a little bit harder to get things done. But again, this is the first Wednesday that we've had. So there's definitely confusion. And I think that with time, people will adapt to it. And also I want to give a little quick shout out to the teachers, because I know that they've been working super hard, especially with the Wi-Fi issues. They've been really persevering through it all, making sure that we have our lesson plans despite the Wi-Fi issues. And they've been changing around the way that they've been doing things. And it's been really helpful from a student's perspective, seeing all the work that they've been putting in. So it's really appreciative. And as far as the class of 2021, we're not doing fundraisers still because, again, we're not really sure exactly what activities we're going to be able to participate in. And I know that a bunch of the senior parents are planning things, and they already have given us a lot of little things on the side. They had a Chick-fil-A drive-in for us. They have Hershey Kisses outside the nurse's office for us for Valentine's Day. They've done really nice little things that are just kind of nice to be appreciated. And we did have a snow day, which was nice. The senior class officers and I had a meeting with Dr. Marsden last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago. And we proposed an idea of having a snow day for the seniors, and we ended up getting one. And I know that all of the seniors were very happy about that. I saw people sledding, acting like they were kids again. It was great. I know that everyone really enjoyed it. I myself went sledding on Hospital Hill, and it was very fun. Andrew was there too. And
no secrets here, Andrew.
Masks were on though. We were COVID conscious.
Yes. And as far as what we're doing as student government right now, since we're not fundraising, is we're really looking at prom, since we've had a few meetings with the class of 2022 and Mr. Sperling about possibilities and venues and such. And right now it seems like we're going to be having 2 separate proms between the grades, and we're really trying to pursue outdoor options and where we could possibly hold them. But as seniors, senior officers, we think it's really important that we do have a prom of some sort if we can pull it off, because we didn't get a junior prom last year, and we know that a bunch of the students definitely will be wanting to have a prom. So we're working on it, and we're pursuing all possible options, and we're just keeping our minds open to possible ideas and ways that we can pull it off. But yeah, that's all I have. And thank you for listening.
Absolutely, Ava. Thank you. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Ava.
Does anybody have any questions for Ava or anybody else? I'm sure could probably bring them back if we needed to.
I have one more thing
Andrew?
to add, just about student council as a whole. So we did our Share Your Heart event, which is you just sell little wooden hearts. You can send message to your friends. But we sent around a virtual link that people could donate online to. So as of right now, we have over $2,000 donated to the Dana-Farber Research Fund, which is really awesome that we were able to raise that amount of money. So that's just online too. I don't think that's including the student council's donation from the hearts themselves. So
Great. Thank you.
Great, Andrew.
And I will say that the report back is that your conversation with Dr. Marsden was very conducted extremely well, And
Well thought out.
I want to commend you and your classmates for what you've had to go through this year as well. And because now we have the technology and the means that to make snow days a thing of the past, perhaps you have set a trend on a tradition of creating a senior snow day, perhaps every year of some kind. So maybe a way to remember the pain that the class of 2021 had to go through in the future and to never forget. So,
Yeah,
but good luck.
Leo, our good friends at the Department of Education have told us that the remote days are for this year only. So we'll see what happens.
Wonderful.
They can always change their mind, I guess.
Yeah, yes, they can. All right. Thank you so much, Ava. It's so much appreciated, and to all of you, very much so. We are actually going to move on with new business. Dr. Worthley on social emotional learning and the SEL task force update. And I know that one of the things that we kind of talk about as a committee is how much we would really like to think about what is happening in terms of SEL and the right now within the district, given that there are so many concerns around student mental health right now. And we're obviously seeing how difficult that is right now. So Dr. Marsden and Dr. Worthley, if you would like to take it away.
I think Dave has to share his screen. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
And Dave, you are congratulated for wearing a tie at 8:49 tonight and waiting for as long as you have.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm a very sophisticated young man.
Yes. Yes.
My mom says I'm very special, and I appreciate your noticing that.
I haven't worn a tie at all in this whole year, so.
Understood. Okay, so thank you guys for having me on here. Let me see if I can get to my, that's going to share.
Yep, share that.
Give me 1 second while I figure this out. I'm on my way. I just have to move the whole thing down a little bit and get to present. Okay, you guys up and you can see me very well and you can see the screen? All right, perfect. Okay, well, thanks a lot for having me. I just, as I'm sitting here listening, can reiterate what the kids are saying and some of the parents, where it's so great to be presenting in a meeting where the conversation is getting our kids back in school. And that's really, it's really an exciting thing, an exciting time. And I will also reiterate that the nurses are crushing it, and we really appreciate it. I work closely with the nurses and most of the departments that support kids. So I just wanted to shout out to those guys as well. So for those of you who don't know me yet, or the parents on the younger side, or anybody who doesn't quite know kind of what I do, again, I'm Dave Worthley. I'm the Director of Social Emotional Learning for the district. I work primarily out of the high school. And my wife, you might have recognized her name. She is the K through 12 guidance head. So I can say pretty confidently that we, kind of like a lot of you people, spend a good deal of our lives trying to figure out the best way to support the kids in Medfield. And it's been a great thing to be able to do that. So like I said, thanks for allowing me the opportunity to kind of come on and talk about all things Medfield and as it concerns SEL. You know, SEL and how it's set up and rolled out and managed and administered is very different from district to district. I'm in a big a group of like a job-alike group, and each one of us has entirely different job responsibilities and tasks and management jobs based on the needs and the individual needs of the students and the teachers and the families and the administration and the budget and everything else. But we all have the same goal in mind, which is how to teach our kids to be happy, productive young people, and how to support our kids and their families when things go off the rails. So I thought I'd break it down a little bit and give you a quick overview of some of the things that we do in the world of SEL. It's been a couple of years since I was able to come on here and kind of say, because we missed last year's meeting. So I promise to try to keep it as brief as I can, but there's kind of a lot to it, but I promise to go quick. And as I was reading some things, I came across the teachings of Giancarlo Rota, who was a mathematician and philosopher, worked about 35 years at MIT, and he had a couple of major points. He had a lot of major points, but a couple of them I'll try to stick to. One, he said, when speaking, always try to have one important point and go back to it several times. So I think that really kind of will lead my speaking. And number two is never go too long. And his quote is, 1 minute over time can destroy the best of lectures. So I will do my best to be concise. So like I said, I'm going to give brief descriptions because time kind of pivots going into a big deep dive on these things. But just because I'm not going deeply into them doesn't mean there's not a lot of deep things happening there and a lot of great work going into those things. So it's kind of like when you have a job interview and you're trying to throw 35 years worth of career into a 45-minute conversation, right? So it's a lot of important things, a lot of great things happening. So I'm just going to kind of hit it from the 10,000-foot view. So a couple of things that we're going to talk about. We'll talk about SEL in general. We'll talk about some of the task force work. We'll talk about how the SEL curriculum is going in our schools, some of the speakers and presentations, and then kind of the highlight, probably why people invited me here in the first place, was to talk about mental health and what we're seeing, especially at the high school level. We'll start from there. So, and then if you have questions, just stop me or whatever. So I'm happy to answer questions. So what is SEL? When we started the task force, we asked teachers and parents and kind of the community, what is SEL? What do you guys think SEL is? And we had a lot of different answers and a lot of inconsistencies in what people understood in terms of SEL. It's most people at the high school level said, well, it's the kids in Rise, and people at middle school said, well, it's be nice to each other and that kind of thing. So I thought I would just define it really quick to give you an idea about what we work on and work off of as a base. So SEL, social emotional learning, is a process through which children and adults acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. We generally follow the CASEL model, as you can see there. CASEL stands for Competency Areas of SEL. And you can see those areas there. So most of the curriculum work that we do, and most of the stuff that we try to incorporate into our curriculums across the board, across the content areas, are all based on these 5 areas. So why do we want to have these things in? Why is that so important to me and to other people? Well, the research has shown that kids that participate in these SEL programs have improved classroom behavior, increased ability to manage stress and depression, which is my big one, and have better attitudes about themselves and others and school in general. And when it comes to the value of SEL, lots of research out there talking to employers and companies and kind of people that are out into the global economy, and they're saying these people are coming to us with the technical skills, but they don't have the communication, the adaptability, the decision-making, the problem-solving skills to be able to do the job. And the colleges have been telling us the same thing for a couple of years, that our kids are coming out with the grades, and there's no kind of peer to a Medfield education, really. I mean, the kids are so academically prepared, but some of the social stuff and some of that developmental skills that people are supposed to have as far as self-advocacy and problem solving and ability to withstand their own affect or mood is a little bit less developed. So, in my mind, my dream would be to have SEL skills be right along in the same category as science and math and English and history and everything else, because, and I get to, everybody has their own agenda, right? Science teachers love science, math people love math. I totally understand all that stuff. My whole thing is, if I look to see what kind of traits that I really want my kids to have growing up, I want my kids to be able to manage conflict and develop positive and lasting relationships and have the ability to accept constructive criticism and reflect and make decisions that are going to be based on the common good. Those are the things that I really think. So I understand that everything is important, but that's just kind of my pitch to really be cognizant of the fact that the SEL skills are so important. Now, I know that, like I said, we're going to get to the mental health piece, but all of this stuff is one huge umbrella that funnels down into some of the things we're seeing at our highest levels. And like I said, in my mind, if a person can't develop and maintain those relationships, can't have any kind of conflict resolution, can't get by the things that are jamming them up, what good is it to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company? You know what I mean? What good is a 10,000 foot house if you're alone in it? So to me, those are my things that are important. I know they're not the most important things to everybody, but when I really break down and talk to parents about what do they really, really want, those are the things I think they really want. So, and I've been in education for a long time, so I get to say some of these things that might not be the most mainstream things to say, but like I said, those are the things that are important. So as far as some of the work we do with the task force. So if you don't know about the SEL task force, the SEL task force was set up about 2.5 years ago. I co-chaired that task force with Susan Cowell, who's the K through 12 wellness department head. And Dr. Marsden came to us and said, listen, let's figure out how to improve the overall educational experience and look to see where some of the weaknesses are, some of the strengths, and then try to remediate some of those weaknesses. So we have, we have a collection of right now 30 students, teachers, administrators, both building-based and central office, parents, and SRO, and then members of the school committee to all look to see what areas that we can improve on. And I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize the contributions of Anna Mae and Tim and Jess Riley. You've come in and really made it easy for us to be able to do the things that we need to do to be able to put those supports in place for our kids. So thank you guys for that. And I also want to thank all the members, current and past, that have been part of that group, because it's really led to some pretty cool things. So what we generally do in this task force, we meet about once every 3 weeks or once a month, other than before this pandemic hit. Now we're back on track, but we come and we create subcommittees to look at different things that we've identified as issues needing attention. So for example, I thought I would give you just a really quick brief things of some of the things we were working on last March when the pandemic hit, and then I'll kind of go on what we're looking at now. So last March, we had a staff wellness subcommittee, we had a parent engagement subcommittee, a group looking at school start time. We had a committee looking at the school schedule, and in fact, the high school schedule is being put up to be looked at to move forward. If it gets approved, that'll be great. That kind of came out of there as well. We had a student wellness subcommittee and an SEL curriculum subcommittee, and that led to some changes in our curriculum as well in the elementary schools. So we feel pretty good about the work that was done last year. And then the pandemic hit. And when we got back to it, so we were all just treading water and trying to keep above the water line, and for the first part of the year here. So, but we're back in session now with that committee, and we've met twice, and we've kind of tried to see where the needs are now and what some of the things are most important to work on. So we've kind of changed the thing around a little bit for this year, since we have about half a year to look at it versus a full year. So we're looking at different projects or different activities or events or initiatives that we could take on to make some positive change. For example, we have a group looking at the curation of silver linings, which is like a collection of positive outcomes and lessons learned resulting from the changes to our lives from the pandemic. That would be like submissions from all K through 12 students, parents, and staff, and related community members. So that would be kind of a neat thing. Brainstorming community events to improve morale in town, like the rolling rally for graduation was a big a benefit to our whole community. I think it really helped last year to raise the level of everybody's mood. It was hard to do, but it came off great. And we were thinking about maybe we could think of some other things that would be good for the kids as we're starting to get back together. And then we're looking also to get back to pre-COVID traditions where safety is not compromised. For example, the Daily Dale, where kids are getting back to being able to make the announcements in the elementary schools. I know we've had some of our task force members reaching out to principals and trying to figure out where we can put some good things into place to get the kids back into feeling some sense of normalcy and pride and connection to what they're doing. And then also trying to figure out another group, trying to figure out how to embed the SEL into all the work, you know, rather than seeing it as something extra, how can we systematically incorporate it into all of our work and the lives and understanding of all of our families. So, you know, each one of these groups will bring with it, you know, great ideas and really help the experience of the educational process to our staff and our families, so in our kids. So that's kind of what we're looking at in the task force. Some SEL curriculum updates. So at Memorial, they continue to do a combination of Open Circle and Choose to Be Nice lessons. They had their last virtual Wednesday last week, and starting actually yesterday, kindergarten kids were in person. After vacation, the grade 1 kids will be back on Wednesday. So SEL lessons will be in full swing as both groups continue to build community within their classrooms now that they have a full classroom building, which is great. Like Wheelock, Memorial has lunch bunches and snack packs being run by guidance and resources, continue to be shared weekly on virtual notebooks for the Cohort D kids on the website. Kathy Bockhurst, who was a guidance counselor in the elementary, and Lindsay Warner, they continue to send out movement breaks and slides to support remote learning and things like that. So, and I want to say that Lindsay Warner and Kathy Bockhurst have done a great job supporting the teachers and the kids as they implement some of these things. So they've really done a really nice job. At Wheelock, all students are participating in a morning meeting, which includes an open circle activity. They've been running a longer SEL session on Wednesdays, but that might change a little bit as the cohorts are back in person. At Dale Street, we were able to train teachers and bring in Sanford Harmony curriculum, which is great. Again, Lindsay Warner kind of took the lead on that for me and for all of us, and taught that for a while. All the teachers were trained, but she kind of ran those lessons, and now she's got teachers doing it. And so teachers are teaching the Sanford Harmony curriculum during Wednesday Synchronized Learning as their first block from 9 to 9:30. Lindsay creates the slides and sends them out for each grade level. And Dale Street started with Sanford Harmony every other Wednesday, and then the extension activities on off weeks. So that's been a really great thing. I have some examples, but I think I'll just kind of slide on. At Blake, so middle school obviously is such a different, wonderful, unique, awkward, and totally different educational experience in Animal, right? So I was an assistant principal in middle school for a couple of years, and it was so completely different. The developmental ages are so wonderfully goofy, and their changes that they go through each day, basically, that it makes it a different animal altogether. And I could spend literally hours talking about all the ways that Nat Vaughn is worked to incorporate all kinds of things related to the best practices for kids in SEL into the things that they do at Blake. And so I'll just highlight a few of those things, but please, again, don't take that as each one of these things I couldn't speak at for another hour. But so over in Blake, they've looked at structural and systemic changes through an SEL lens. They've transitioned implementation and the generalization of standards-based reporting, targeted actionable feedback on the report cards, SEL integration and structure, the coordinated program review and significant disproportionality, looking at how they provide access for all students and make sure that all voices, races, and ethnicities are represented, leveling placement of courses. They looked at the schedule and tried to, keeping in mind the social emotional needs of their kids, they programmatically made the decision to have the related arts classes or specials be in person and not asynchronous, and make sure that every day the kids were having advisories in person, which is a big deal. And they really wanted to make sure that the kids didn't have just the core courses, and they had their related arts classes as well, which is really big. So wellness, arts, and music. And so that they also had time to have some peer interactions as well. So all in a safe COVID-19 compliance structure, certainly. Also at Blake, they really, through advisory meetings and faculty meetings and PD, made a concerted effort to integrate these discussions around equity, social justice, and race awareness. And I know that they have the Medfield Educators for Racial Justice meetings, and they're trying to have that be at the forefront of all of the things that teachers are doing. So it's really great. And again, every kid has been in advisory every day, and place for check-ins, organizations, and discussions. And kids are asked bi-weekly for check-ins to see how the learning is going, the progress they're making, things they want to share with teachers, and families get a survey every month as well. So there's just a lot of things happening there, and it's all geared towards support and care of our kids. So at the high school, we have lots of things happening as well. It gets a little more broad as you go up the ladder into the older kids. And we incorporate it, not necessarily, there's so much more emphasis on class time and content in each class that we have to figure out ways to make sure that we're getting this SEL material in, and we do a pretty good job of it. So at the high school level, we're a challenge success district, and a lot of the challenge success, there's a lot of advisory themes around challenge success, like community building, time management, communication. We look at the phone usage, we do a lot of sleep talk around in advisory. There's challenge success student group. They had a speaker recently talking about how to manage time and Division I athletics, and how to manage and allocate different time for different things and have a good balance. The testing calendars come out of challenge success and some of the SEL task force work as well. In guidance, we have 8th grade introduction to high school, meet your guidance counselor. There's stress management classes, 8th grade. There's introduction to your high school guidance counselor to try to get kids so that they can really understand and meet their guidance counselors and be comfortable when they get up here. We have Freshman Fridays, where every freshman meet with their guidance counselor. We run the SOS program, the Science of Suicide, 3 times, for 9th, 7th, 9th, and 12th graders. We have a Renew project where we had mentor kids that might be identified as not, or they may not have the easiest time transitioning to the high school, and that's been very successful. And it also has an kind of awareness. What we do is the kids in our Renew program match up with kids from Blake, and they get to know them so that they have a friendly face in the building, and they already know someone coming in the building when they get up there. And it's been really, really great. So for some of the other school-wide programs, let's see. Mr. Parg and I do a group facilitator and leadership training that kind of goes along with the SEL mission. There's the NEASC stuff, the vision of the graduate. There's a new chapter, Active Minds, I wanted to point out. It's a nonprofit mental health awareness thing. It's very big in colleges, and the focus is on young adults 14 to 25. And it really opens up the conversation around mental health and trying to take the stigma away and get people talking in ways so that kids can support each other. And we have a couple of kids, Megan Bannister is a senior and Catherine Waters a junior. They took this over, and they're getting it off the ground now, which is great. They got money for it. There's the first activity is a bandana project where kids can know exactly who to identify if they need to talk to someone or if they need to reach out. There's someone always available, and that has been very popular. They're having a speaker come in March or April to talk about high pressure and stress and how to manage that kind of thing. And some of what we're calling now, and we're seeing a lot, which I'm going to mention in a minute, kind of this destructive perfectionism that we're seeing running rampant, which is something we're really trying to address. So those guys are doing really well getting that up and running, and I'm really proud of them. Some of the speakers and presentations, when the pandemic hit, we had Screen Ages, the next chapter scheduled to go. And so that's still, we've paid for it. I have it ready to go when things get back to normal. We have the One Love presentation that we do yearly. That is a film. And then with associated advisory, we usually spend about an hour in our advisories discussing its domestic violence prevention. And we do that with juniors and seniors. Chris Herron comes in, talks drug and alcohol. For parents, we've had Rachel Simmons, pandemic parenting. We co-sponsor with my colleague over at Medway to kind of fund some of these things. We just had one recently as well, but we had a great panel last year, helping your young athlete win the race, the Finding Balance in Youth Sports. That was a great one. That was very well attended, about 150 people there. SEL information parent webinars. We had recently Navigating Learning During Uncertain Times. We've had 3 great Medfield Talks series lately, what to do when your child needs help. We had Sarah Ward come in to talk about executive functioning. And we also had Nadja Riley coming in to talk about it's okay not to feel okay. And then one of our parents, Kim Price, spoke about her own experience. So that was really great too. So we try to hit kind of parents and kids and staff all with the umbrella, focusing it down on all these SEL skills. So now if we kick it over to what we're seeing as far as data in Medfield. So as far as the mental health. So first I'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing in general. So from the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey in 2018, it showed that about 15% of our students experienced depressive symptoms, 12% engage in self-injurious behavior, 9% seriously consider suicide, 3% have attempted suicide in the past year, and 41% of those students feel life is very stressful. Our reported rates of depression, self-injurious behavior, and suicidality are all lower than the Metro West average, the state average, and the nation average. That's a good news. The bad news is that we still have numbers at all, right? So as far as what we're seeing this year in our RISE program, let me explain to you really quick what the RISE program is. So 5 years ago, when we started this, when I was hired, we decided to create a transition program to support kids that were missing significant time as they transition back, and to help support those kids get back. We started off with 50 our first year, and we were very selective, and it's morphed into now we average about 140 kids that we support every year. And that support might be for missing time for a concussion or a torn ACL or mono or COVID or whatever. But really we're really trying to support and make a point to support the kids that are out for extended times with anything from eating disorders or psychiatric hospitalizations or things that are jamming them up emotionally or psychiatrically. So we have had this year a huge number of depressive symptoms, a huge number of anxiety, kids that are experiencing anxiety. Our mental health cases are up. Our hospitalizations are way up as well. So I can tell you that in the past, we were dealing with, we generally knew the players. We talk all as a big staff about kids coming up, but we could identify those kids because these kids were kids that had histories in middle school. This year, we're seeing kids left and right and every other day, basically, who are being hospitalized or just about to be hospitalized or experiencing some level of suicidal ideation or chronic depression that we've never heard of. So these kids are the different kids totally, and which makes it complicated because we do our best work supporting those kids through human connection. And I can tell you with the masks, it's been very complicated. And kids, we have a classroom. I have a teacher that's a full-time teacher that supports the academic piece and acts as the liaison between the student and the kid and the teacher. And then I act as the kind of the case manager between the treaters, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, the hospital staff, the insurance, whatever, the parents, and we try to manage it from that way. And so we kind of take on a case management model, and it's very successful. But the kids that we're seeing are really dangerous. It's like the ones that we can identify and that we know to watch, those kids we can manage because we have an unbelievably talented and caring guidance staff. Our adjustment counselor, I'll talk about in a minute. People really know what they're doing and who to identify. But when the kids come out of nowhere and they're kids that we've never seen before, have never had a contact with anybody around anything emotional, that's when it gets a little scary. And we've seen a big increase in those cases as well. So just in general, we've had, including repeat hospitalizations for the same kid, which we haven't had all that many of. I think we've had 24 hospitalizations this year, psychiatric hospitalizations, which is a big number. Eating disorders are creeping up a little bit. You know, our numbers of depression and anxiety are higher than they have been. And so for a little while there, we were on pace to be looking at about 40 hospitalizations for the new hospitalizations, for different kids each. But that has tailed off a little bit. I'm hoping that it doesn't jump up again here after the break, but we were on a pretty steep incline as far as those numbers for a little while. But like I mentioned a little while ago, what I'm seeing a rise in is really this destructive perfectionism. We have kids that are really strongly motivated academically, but they can never achieve enough, or they can never kind of get to the goal where they need to be, and they're crumbling. You know, so it's always a fine line between how to support them, how to have them back off of the academic piece, but not to minimize the importance of it to them, and then to how to manage the expectations and the kind of wants of the parents as well, because this is a very you know, people expect a high level of academic achievement in our community, and our schools are great and it's highly ranked. And a lot of the work I do with parents is around trying to figure out what the important things are as it pertains to their kids, and how to have them model that. So that being said, the resilience of these kids is incredible. Every day I hear stories, and it's hard for me to even imagine how these kids get out of bed, never mind come and manage hybrid learning and trying to play catch up while they're trying to do current work, and really pay attention to that stuff when their emotional health has really been compromised. So I'm always proud and impressed with those guys. So some of the numbers real quick, and then I'll wrap it up here. Like, so we call it a SWAT team. It's our student wellness assistance team, and it's nurses, administration, guidance counselors, adjustment counselors, school psychologists. And we meet weekly to identify kids that are in crisis or having some kind of difficulty, and discuss those kids. So just to give you a quick idea about what it looks like this year, in the 2018-19 year, we identified and spoke about 256 kids as a SWAT team. Last year, including all the kids that weren't coming to school, so that number was inflated a little bit. So these are kids that were having a hard time with remote learning. We talked about 270 kids. This year, at the halfway point, we have identified and discussed 210 kids already. So that means we're going to be looking at over 400 kids by the time this year is over. So that's 400 kids that are like crisis referral type kids that we're really trying to figure out how to manage, how to help. And that's about a little bit more than half of our whole high school population. So that number is huge. So the kids are really struggling. The kids are really hurting. A lot of the problem, so for example, Mr. Becker, our adjustment counselor, he works at Blake and at the high school. Last year, he saw 130 kids for counseling as an adjustment counselor. This year at the halfway point, he's already at 110 kids. So he's going to be at 220, so which is almost double the amount of kids that he's seeing, right? So we're seeing kids, we're having a really hard time. We're seeing a lot of parents that are having a really hard time as well. A lot of parents are calling for support as well, and we're referring them out. There's not a lot of, there's a shortage of therapists out there. And interestingly enough, like Christy Barney was talking about in our presentation the other day, she's the director of partial hospitalizations for the Brigham and Mass General. She was saying that a lot of the emergency rooms, the average wait is like 100 hours in order to find a bed for kids going to the ER for suicidality, which is incredible if you think about it. Now, 24 hours if you're sitting in an ER is awful. Like, and because I've worked that job, I've worked in ERs doing that emergency crisis placement, and 100 hours is just terrible. So basically the thing is, unless it's a really, really danger-based situation, kids aren't even going to the hospital for it. So I think our hospitalization numbers, although they're high, I think they're a lot lower than they would be if the weights weren't so bad. So all the variables play off each other, but emergency departments in different states are reporting a 250% increase in suicide attempts with our kids. I mean, that's a staggering amount. Psychiatric crisis things are up 6, 7, 8 times the amount that they usually see. So I will say that really that the unbelievable work of the nurses and the guidance staff and adjustment and school psychology and our RISE staff and a lot of teachers and the unwavering support from administration, school committee and all, it's really not only helped kids, but honestly, it has saved lives. I know for a fact that we've saved lives this year. And that's kind of why we do it. And I'm incredibly proud of those people that are working so hard to get it done. And like I said, I'm grateful to have a super and a director of student services and school committee that allow us to do the things that we need to do to keep kids A, safe, and B, then get them ready to learn and to get on to their next level. And I think that unequivocally, that whole group that I just mentioned, every single time that I've been here for 5 years has made the decisions to do what's best for kids. And I can tell you that I've been in a lot of different places. As you can see, I'm very old. But it's not every district is created equally in their support for kids. And I know we've had the internet thing, and we've had the hybrid thing and the COVID thing, but we are still incredibly fortunate to be in a place where the focus of the well-being for kids is paramount. And I can't overstate that. And I'm not saying that for anything other than the fact that it's the truth. And I've been other places where that is not the case. So, I'm pretty pleased to be a part of that team. So I'll end with a really quick example about kind of why we do the job and some of the things that it kind of brings it all together. So we have a kid that is really struggling, 3-time hospitalization this year so far, unable to do much of anything, never can, totally all curled up in a ball all the time, flunking everything, just not having an easy time of anything. And PTSD, major depression, ADD, you name it. And so the other day, was having a better day, and the school was over for about 15 minutes. I remarked to my teacher, Ms. Danielski, how good the kid looked, and that there was a little twinkle in the eye or whatever. And about 10 minutes after that, the kid comes back. And so now school's been out for half an hour. The kid comes back and says, "Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for not giving up on me. I made you these cookies. I felt dumb to give them to you, but I just want to let you know, like, no one's ever stuck by me." And we both just said, "Well, that's great," whatever, and left. And then we both had the tears in our eyes, and we're like, that's the only reason why we do this job. It's the human connection. That's the stuff that is important. Again, everybody has their own agenda. My agenda is to keep kids alive, and it's working. And so that's kind of SEL in a nutshell. I know that was long. I'm sorry. I get passionate about this stuff, but I'd be happy to talk about questions or anything. And like I said, sorry to go too long.
Thank you, Dave. I have to say that we are so obviously, as a district, we're invested in really trying to support our kids as best we can, and that to be smacked with a pandemic and the things that our kids are struggling with right now are overwhelming. So I do appreciate how much the wellness staff, from nurses who are frequently the very first people that, even at the youngest ages, end up identifying really what's going on with kids around anxiety, to where you are within the high school and kind of the overview. I've seen it, our services just exponentially increase since my kids started within the school district. As painful as this is for me to say, if we either want to have Dr. Brugler come back at some point after we kind of talk to him about what's going on right now, and answer more questions, we do have a huge portion of the agenda that we have to get through as well. So let's just kind of keep brevity in mind more than perhaps I just did. Okay, so Megan, thank you.
Quickly, I want to give you props, Dr. Wordley. Even the speaker series that you've brought in, and I know I've reached out to you before about things that I've kind of researched on my own, but particularly the last series, What to Do if you've, I forget what the name of it was, but there's probably nothing more terrifying when going through a mental health crisis than not knowing where to turn or how to ask for help. And the destigmatizing that you guys are all doing every day, and just like walking parents through, this is happening and we're here, and sharing all the resources is tremendous. And it's definitely a comfort to know. And I know you're right when you say that this isn't the way that it is in a lot of other places. So I consider myself to be very lucky to be here. The one question that I have for you is that I know that bringing the kids back, it's going to be hard, and they have gone through a lot. I remember my first year as a young teacher, the stress of just, your first year teaching. I was at 2 different schools. I was planning a wedding. I was actually teaching in the classroom when the planes hit the World Trade Center. A lot hit me, and I was struggling, and I know my colleagues saw it, but there was a stigma, and nobody helped me. Nobody reached out to help me. And I'm wondering, I know that the kids are hugely looked after and cared for. I'm wondering if there's something in place for our teachers, because they're facing a lot of the hardships that, that we're facing, that our students are facing. And I just don't know what kind of supports are in place for them in the schools. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, sure. I know that. So last year, and actually for the last 2.5 years in the SEL task force, we've really looked closely about staff wellness. I know that Susan Cowell that's one of her big things she comes back to, is the stress and the burnout for teachers and the support that they need. So we've put some things in place, which is great. So I think we'll really have to look back now. I think you're exactly right, by the way. And we're going to have to look back now to see how to best support those guys as the needs come up. We haven't put a lot in place yet because we're kind of, like we always say, building the plane while it's in the air, trying to figure out how to stay afloat here. But I think we'll definitely look to see what we can do and what they need.
I just keep coming back to the old adage, which is cliche now, but you have to put your own mask on first before you can help your child or your passenger in the seat next to you. And I know that we're going to be looking to the teachers a lot in terms of, and we always have, but when they're under this emotional distress as well, they need to be, well themselves to help our kids. So I'm just looking out for them as well.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
We have the employee assistance program as well. So if there's an issue that someone has, we have a employee assistance program that helps them out. So we have, that's always been in place.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Do I have any other committee members or
Yes,
Dr. Marston?
Sorry.
Please.
I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm not at all. I just,
this is like
always on the clock. It's awful.
We know there are huge mental health issues.
Listen, we've all done it. It's complete tonight,
it's
Edna. It's not.
But I think we can't, I think, sorry, my head is saying, shut up, just let this go. But my heart is saying, I need to say something. So, sorry. But thank you, Dave, for the work you do, and the work that Russ does. I think this deep belly breaths. This reinforces, Dr. Marston's ask for for more support in our schools. And I think if just knowing what we know now and in figures and graphs, and we can't unknow this, right? And but this is staggering. This is staggering. And I thank Megan for saying, for bringing up the issue that how do we support teachers, you know, as well, because we know they're suffering as well. But I just want to also say that you mentioned, all right, you mentioned eating disorders, and I did send an email to both you and Susan Cowell. And I had mentioned that, I mean, eating disorders are off the charts. And I had mentioned that my daughter, who suffered from an eating disorder, had said to me, you know, after she's recovering, she's recovered, she's good. But she had mentioned that, you know, she started thinking about all these things, you know, at Dale during the lessons, you know, they'd read the labeled packets, and, you know, if the first thing's sugar, it's a bad food, or at least that's how she heard it. And at the the Medfield Coalition for Suicide Prevention, we had the meeting the other day, and Susan had approached the health teachers, and they are now revamping a lot of the lessons. And I am so grateful to that, because I know, and the students that sat in that coalition meeting had said also, you know, in sophomore year, lesson plans, calorie counting, a lot of kids ended up getting, you know, I don't know, My Plate or something, an app that wasn't the intention of the lesson, but unfortunately that was the outcome. So I just want to extend my gratitude that this trend of eating disorders, some of our lessons have impacted that. And I mean, there are a lot of things that go into an eating, very complex, but even just taking a look at the lessons and how we're talking is important. And I appreciate how Susan and those teachers are now addressing them. So that's what I needed to say. And I really hope we support that budget line item that Dr. Marsden has asked for. Sorry, I know we're.
Thank you for sharing that, Anime. It's an important stuff, and I can tell you that Susan and I have spoken every day about all of that process since you have brought that up. You know, and that's how we do it, right? People bring things to attention. We look to see what makes sense. We look to see what processes are in place and what makes sense to kind of make them work for everybody. So, yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I mean, I do think that it's very important, and I will speak to all 37 people out there who are now here now, that if you have reflections about things that we are doing in school, things that that you have a unique perspective on, that you may not understand, that have affected your family, but may not affect another family in the same way, but you have those reflections, please let us know always, or not us necessarily, but your teacher, your principal, you know, Dr. Worthley, let us know these things. We can't know unless you tell us sometimes those different perspectives, and we're open to them. So thank you.
Just one comment, and David, thank you so much. Please apologize. It's the worst thing. Thank you for the time and what you're doing. I love, Jess, your comment about having you back. And I think I would rather it sooner rather than later. It's a great presentation. And, you know, where else do you need help? How else can the community help? I think, you know, I know we do some of those as sessions that you're doing anyways, but I think that's where my head immediately goes, right? Especially the last 10 minutes of your presentation, because this is not going to stop, right? And so, you know, the visibility of you being here in front of us today is great. The news is not, but we expected that. But it, you know, immediately it says, hey, we want to continue to think where else and how else can we as school committee and more important within the community, how can we continue to help and support what you're doing? And it's rhetorical right now, but I think that, you know, it's just my own thoughts, that would be a natural progression of the conversation we've just had.
And I think back to Dr. McCullough's comment about, kids are coming back to school and to still be diligent, and, this is not going to solve problems. And how do we educate teachers, parents, administrators to really tune into some of these very subtle, what behaviors or what have you. Anyways. Thank you.
I'll be brief. Dr. Worley, I just want to thank you for what you're doing for the school district. And I echo, everything that has been said so far, and in particular, the transition program, which speaks volumes because of the flexibility of those students who had trouble transitioning in and out of school for certain reasons, or I've seen it firsthand in a program in another school district I worked in, and the dedication of the staff is amazing, and being able to work with those staff and keep them engaged too, because sometimes building off what Megan said, but the ability for your staff that are working too to support them effectively so they can continue their work is, I commend you for all of that. And I echo what Tim just said as well. Dr. Marsden does a great job of supporting you, but, continue help us get the word out to support the program, as I fear it's going to be in great demand in the next 12 to 18 months. As a result of what we've gone through. So thank you again for sharing this with us.
I appreciate it. I will say that, the credit's not mine. We have an unbelievable team, literally, of support services and support staff. It's the best team I've ever been a part of. So it makes it a lot
The
easier.
people who do that work, they're the most dedicated people ever to those, to those students. And I was fortunate to be working with a couple of those students, and just understand what role those people play in their lives. So, and how successful they can be as a result of that. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I would not ordinarily do this, but knowing that we think it's probably valuable to continue to have Dr. Worthley back over a period of time, and that we are at almost 2 hours and 40 minutes right now with another section of the business agenda to get through. I am going to ask the committee if you would agree to put public comment on postpone on this one for right now for this agenda item. So can I get, essentially, we don't have to vote this necessarily, but can I get a show of hands about whether we would be willing to forego public comment on this right now?
Jess, I feel funny about this. I mean, this
Okay.
is so personal. I really feel
Great,
like
open it up.
Sounds good. Who would like to do, that's why I ask, who, if there is anyone, first of all, let me kind of circle up with the community, with the committee. Are there any other comments at this point? Anyone? Okay. All right. So does anybody have any questions? Any comments in terms of SEL right now? I don't
really have a question, but I just have like kind of a comment.
Please.
Perspective. So I personally haven't struggled necessarily with like a definable mental health issue, but I definitely feel that myself and my peers have felt the kind of like COVID rut, as kind of what I'm nicknaming it in my head, is what it's kind of turned into. It's like this cycle of waking up and like getting on Zoom, and then that's kind of like your entire existence. There's really no outlet. You don't really get to see your friends like you used to before. You're not like going, out and doing stuff with your family like you used to. And like, especially what I've noticed from like my own personal experience is that like the increased amount of times on screens and social media. And I think like that, like I've kind of forced myself to like do a cleanse, like just like delete social media, like get off your phone. Cause I think that's like hugely a factor in kind of all like the issues that people are feeling right now. So I just want to thank Dr. Worthley and like the guidance staff, because I definitely know that that's been a huge resource for students. And that this is something that's going to kind of be going on for an extended period of time as we come out of this pandemic. So,
yeah,
Thank you.
I have said that I cannot imagine a worse developmental stage or period of your life to be stuck in a house with your parents and have to stay away from. It's everything about that is wrong. Or no, truly, like, and it's just exactly not what happens. Is certainly within our kind of U.S. Western culture that we place so much emphasis on separation, and then we're all stuck in the house together. And I'm the mom of a teenager, and trust me, this is a daily thing where I just look at him like, God, I wish you could be almost anywhere else as much as I love you, so that you don't have to do this right now.
Yeah.
But
and it's like, it's also another thing is like trying to like entertain yourself. Like I know at my age, like my parents aren't like, you know, babysitting me every 5 minutes, but like I just have to like find things to entertain myself that are also not detrimental to my mental health. Like I have to like, all right, you know, I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna go read a book. Like I'm, you know, like a 45-year-old man, even though like all my peers are like on TikTok or whatever. So I know that's like something that like it's kind of hard to pull yourself out of that situation and like force yourself to do stuff that's like not necessarily, you know, something that is, I guess, quote unquote normal, but I don't know. I just think like it's for the long term and like, yeah, I think you know what I mean.
Andrew, you just described my best day, by the way. All right. Okay. Anyone else? I didn't see any comments on that, any public comments. So, Dr. Martin, can we move on to other items since posting on February 9th,
Sure.
2021? And
Sure.
thank
Thank you, David. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the time.
So, Madam Chair, I have no other items that were posted since the posting on February 9th.
Okay, thank you. So then we will move on to old business. And is Mary here, or are we going to?
Mary is here.
Oh God, love you, Mary. Thank you. Can you raise your hand so Owen can bring you over? Next, we are going to talk about the second reading of policy for school admissions policies, JF and JF-E-1. And this is a potential vote. If anybody has any, poor Mary. I did try to get you in earlier, I promise. So if you want to present to us, I know that we've read through the first draft.
Yes, so there were no changes from the first draft to the second. I think there were no questions last time.
Right.
And, you know, just hoping to be able to get the policy adopted today so that we can just really make sure that we, as a district, are meeting the needs of vulnerable populations. We did take kind of the statement about how we would support students that might not have access to a car or might not have access to a printer or email. That is part of the policy. We also added that to all of our registration paperwork, just so you're aware as well. We recently also had all of the registration paperwork translated into all of the major languages, and those are available and up on the website. So we will add in the caveat that we added here. We'll get that translated into all of the languages as well and put up there. But other than that, no major changes. I just really wanted to hang on and be able to see you all. And yes, but yes, if we could get the second reading, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do I hear any discussion or comments from the committee or a motion to accept the school admissions policies JF and JF-E-1 as they are presented? I'll open that up to the committee.
So moved.
All right, Megan Glenn moved. Do I have a second?
A second.
Oh.
Tim gets that one. He hasn't had
Give
one.
it to Tim.
No,
He's
it's
on
because
the
of policy committee.
I know we got to give it to Tim a second.
All right. And I'll do a roll call vote. actually, yeah, I first need to do public comment. I'm sorry, it's getting so late that I completely forgot. So may we put a pause on the motion after we do public comment?
Yes.
Do I have an agreement with that?
Yes.
Glenn? Thank you.
Rescinded. or-
Withdrawn. All right. Can I, Owen, have you bring Chris McHugh Potts over, please?
Hi again.
Hello.
This is just a clarifying question for Mary. There have been a lot of updates to the various laws with regard to what's included in what's considered discriminatory criteria, and it's changed a lot. There was a advisory that came out from the Attorney General's office in 2017, and I did not look at the legal references on the bottom, but I was just curious. The two that were missing based on that advisory were without regard to disability and immigration status. I didn't know whether those or both had been changed since that 2017 advisory, but I just thought I would mention it because that was something that I had seen in the past. And there seems like there's various versions of the discriminatory definitions out there. So I just was curious about it more than anything.
Within the admissions policy, sorry, was that?
Well, there seems to be a standard, like this Attorney General's advisory is basically equal access to public education for all students, irrespective of immigration status. Mm-hmm. That was from March 2017, and then within that advisory, they also included disability as one of the I don't know what the right word is, but it was race, color, sex, gender identity, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, disability, or immigration status. And those disability and immigration status, I just didn't see it in the draft, but there may be a more recent version of this. So I was just curious because there seems to be like multiple different definitions that are floating out there. And I just was wondering which one is the right one. That was all. Does that make sense? Okay.
Okay. So Mary, this was, and I think that we've said this before, essentially this policy was mandated and kind of handed down to us.
Yes, so the other three policies that we changed earlier were mandated new policy changes that were required as a result of our change to our homelessness, our policy for students in foster care, and our migrant and military family policies changing. The admissions policy needed to be updated as well. Yes.
All right. So, so now do I hear a motion or any more discussion around the policy itself? Or do I hear a motion to accept the school admissions policies JF and JF-E-1 as presented?
So moved again.
All right, Megan. And then Tim, yeah, I think you got to say it. All right, you second. Tim Nate seconds. And I will do a roll call vote. Leo Brem.
Aye.
And aye.
Aye.
Megan Glenn.
Aye.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke.
Aye.
Jessica Riley. Aye. The motion passes unanimously. And Mary, please go. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Very
Okay.
appreciative.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Dr. Marsden, I'm going to have you do the fiscal year 22 budget update.
Sure.
I'm wondering if we can, with the committee, I would like to postpone the discussion, the larger discussion about revenue until we have time to really thoroughly have a good time, a good chunk of time to make that decision. All right, so the rest of the committee is nodding that they are accepting of that. And then
Yeah, I think that especially the discovery on the busting and that kind of stuff too. I think that's all. Yeah.
Great. So Dr. Morrison, please take it away. Fiscal year 22 budget update.
Sure, Madam Chair, I'm wondering if we also postpone the priorities for reductions.
Okay.
You know, that, because that's a pretty lengthy discussion as well. I mean, I could just give an update on what happened at the warrant committee Monday night, and then look a little bit at the state and federal projections. But I think those other two are almost agenda items on their own based on the conversation we need to have around that.
Okay, great. So do I see agreement from the rest of the committee on that? Yes? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the consideration on that. So we met with the warrant committee on Monday evening, and we did a truncated version of our public hearing presentation going over our numbers, essentially showing where the increase was and the 3.99 increase, what it was pertaining to. Ed Vizella, who is the new liaison from the warrant committee in the school budget, had done some work around our budget and showing, you know, where some of the increases were, and really showing that there really wasn't much of an increase. It was really just on the non-personnel side. It's mostly due to the personnel increases. And, you know, as Ed said, he views them as fixed costs and things that we need to fund through collective bargaining. So, you know, I think that I thought it went pretty well. I think we're a long ways away from having agreement. I mean, we're at 3.99. I think the guidance around the budget was at 1% increase. So we got some work to do on both sides, I think. I know that Ed is going to talk about the revolving accounts next Monday night at the warrant committee. He met with Michael and I and talked about that, you know, at length and in depth of what our revolving accounts look like. I know that I mentioned Monday night, and I'll mention it again, that, you know, 8 years ago, we had $167,000 in our revolving accounts, and we got it up to over well over $1 million before the pandemic hit. So, and while we were paying people in March, April, May, June, you know, we really expended a lot of the money that's there. And fortunately, we saved for the rainy day in order to do that. But now we need to work to build those revolving accounts back up because it's going to rain again at some point. We need to be prepared for that. So that was, I think, a conversation he's going to have with the warrant committee on Monday evening. But I think overall, we're kind of status quo as far as where we are with our 3.99, and then, you know, wait for additional guidance. I do want to add too that there is a $2 million gap at this point with the town, with our budget being most of that. Given what we're hearing in terms of stimulus money coming, it looks like there's going to be direct payments to both the town and school department in stimulus money, so in stimulus packages. So I think it can't be all doom and gloom right now at this point. I think we need to be a little bit optimistic that the Biden administration is going to come through with this money for us, and then we can make some adjustments based on that. But I don't think we're at a point right now that we're going to start cutting $1 million out of our budget. We may get there like we had to do last June, but given the information that we're getting as superintendents around additional monies coming from the federal government, we should really hold off on that. So that's another reason why I thought it might be good to hold off a little bit on those reduction conversations at this level until we start to see what those monies are going to be.
Do you have any idea of the timing of that windfall of money?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's Medfield, so it won't be a windfall.
Crystal ball.
That's for sure. It won't be a windfall, but we're probably looking at March. We start more information in March.
Okay.
I mean, I think just in scanning kind of various articles around it, a lot of it will again be tied to Title I, specifically to education. So
yeah, that doesn't help us very much.
It doesn't help us a whole lot at all.
No, but on the other side, the town will get money that won't be based on that type of mechanism. So I think that will help the town side out anyway. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And then in your materials, you did have transportation technology fee information. So please take a look at that. And I'm sure at our next meeting, we'll have an in-depth conversation, but we really tried to get area districts and get some of the information. You'll see that you know, it ranges anywhere from $180 per person to over $400 per person, depending on what town you live in. We also put the revenue in there, what the towns are getting for the revenue on those, and then disaggregating whether they're a neighborhood school or they're structured like us. That makes a difference in the collecting of bus fees. So that's in there, and then also the technology fee information is there as well. So please take a look at that, and we can expand it if you'd like. I mean, we just did, I think, 7 or 8 districts around here. We can definitely expand it more if you'd like. I'm happy to do that, and get as much information as we can in that process. That's all I have, Madam Chair, in the FY22.
Okay, do I have any public comment on fiscal year 22? And everybody keep their eyes out, those raised hands. All right. Let's then move on to the school building committee update around the Dale Street project.
I can go unless Anna Mae and Leo, if you want to go first, or, okay. So today was a really great day for our project, the new elementary school on Elm Street. Really great session today at MSBA. The board approved our PSR and moved us into the next phase. So that was a really big milestone for our project. I know I sent out the email to all parents, letting them know that this morning, so they would get information as soon as it happens. So we're really happy about it. I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything, but I think it was really important that we got through this phase, and we did. So we're looking forward to building that new elementary school and moving forward with the process.
Super. The only thing I'd like to add is that the sustainability subcommittee is going to have a public forum on Thursday, February 25th. Mark it in your calendars.
Okay. Great. Do I have any public comment on the school, the schools committee side of the Dale Street project? So that would be specifically around the educational plan, the PSR submission for today. Okay. And next, let's see, the next thing is the 2021-22 school calendar second draft. I know that in conversations just today with Dr. Marsden, he is still talking to the leadership team about professional development. So I wonder if we can table this. Sorry, not table it, we'll postpone it and see a second draft and and potentially vote on it in March. Do I have the committee's general agreement on that? Yes, yes. Anna Mae is giving me a thumbs up and I'm getting nods. Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll postpone that as well. The next thing we move on to is donations. Dr. Marsden, do you want to present, please?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I ask you to accept the following donations as presented. $248.44 from the Dale Street PTO to the Dale Street School for recess bags and playground equipment, and $105.07 from the Dale Street PTO to the Dale Street School for holiday staff appreciation event. I ask you to approve those as presented.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve as Dr. Marsden's presented?
So moved.
Okay, so Leo and Anna Mae seconds. Roll call, Leo Brem.
Aye.
Tim Knight.
Aye.
Megan Glenn. Megan Glenn.
Aye.
Thank you. Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke.
Aye.
And Jessica Riley, aye. The motion passes anonymously, unanimously. What a night. And then we move on to informational items.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a couple of items in there. One is a letter that the Tri-County Superintendent's Roundtable sent to the governor outlining the reasons why we think that teachers should be moved up in the earlier part of phase 2. We got a quick reply from Secretary Pizer, essentially the same reply that other roundtables got when they wrote their letter, but I just wanted to include it in there for the record so you could see it. Really no sense of urgency to move teachers up from the governor's office. So want to put that in there. The other piece is that last Friday, I know Tim was able to attend the Tech Cooperative. Tech had their annual legislative meeting and a breakfast. Typically we do that at a tech school. Last year was at the New Dedham Early Childhood Center. But of course, given COVID, we did it all virtually. It was a really good event. Our legislators did a wonderful job. It was great to see Denise there again. Always there to support the work in Medfield. So it was a good morning. I was able to sit on a panel with the superintendent of Medway and the superintendent of Framingham, and we essentially told our tale of it was called a tale of three towns. So we got to share our opening and what we did from essentially July to now, and what that looked like in terms of everything from the political lens to students and what their learning model was, to working with teachers. And so it was just a really good, I thought it was a good panel discussion. And then we had follow-ups from Senator Roush and Senator Lewis, and Representative Peisch was phenomenal as always. So great meeting. I don't know, Tim, if you want to add anything, but I thought I wanted to put that in the informational items.
Yeah, no, it was, I thought it was interesting to hear you and Medway and Framingham. And, you know, it was, part of it was disappointing, you know, more from the trying to move them up on the vaccinations. And while it's such a priority, there was just no time frame.
Right.
But, you know, I guess we're used to that. But no, it was good. It was really, I was glad to join. I'm glad you were representing us.
Thank you. That's all, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any informational items that they would like to share now? Updates? Anything? No. Okay. So then we will move on to future agenda items, which will be the standards-based report card feedback on March 11th. At that time, we will also, since we've postponed it today, we will vote on the school calendar at the March 11th meeting. And we will make sure that we do the priorities for reductions and transportation and technology needs discussion under the budget update at that next meeting as well. So, and then anything else that comes up from there. And then student feedback. I'm sorry, Tim?
I would just, you know, I mean, I know these are marathons, but I would suggest getting that David back on the agenda sooner rather than later. I think that conversation
I agree with that.
This is what happened, and this is the data that we're seeing. Moving it a little more to,
especially as we're heading towards reopening too, it might be good to see how they're strategizing and what they're seeing as a result of that as well.
We will definitely think about that as it goes right now, and I'll make a note of that to figure out where we can kind of fit that into our meeting schedule, because I think it's important. I'm actually wondering, Dr. Marsden, if you think that we're might be in the position in which we're going to have to schedule a second meeting in March, given that we're talking about.
We typically do budget-wise, so.
Yeah, so right now we only have one meeting in March on the 11th, and then our next meeting is on April 1st. It may behoove us to schedule another meeting to get through some of these more. It's been a little while since we've had to schedule another meeting. Like,
yeah, I think it's, yeah, it feels better to spread the love versus these marathon.
Yes, I know.
As long as the spread the loves don't become marathons, right?
I think I've only seen 1 2-hour meeting so far this year. So yes, and then the plan at this point was the student feedback agenda item, and that Anna Mae will be leading, and the mascot task force update on April 1st. So our next,
Madam Chair, we'll also have to have an executive session at some point very soon because of the open meeting law complaint you received today.
Oh, yes.
We'll have to do that as well, so.
Okay, so we will also need to executive session. All right. Well, we should have our work cut out for us. Our next meeting date is on March 11th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And foregoing anything else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, so Anna Mae moves and Tim seconds, and I'm gonna have roll call Leo Brem.
Stain.
Leo Brem is abstaining. Just doesn't like
Goofy.
bedtime.
I'm making history.
Tim Knight
Aye.
and Anna Mae O'Shea Brooke. I'm sorry, I
Yes.
missed Megan. And then Megan Glenn.
I'll speak for her and myself. Aye, aye.
Aye.
It would be good if nobody actually saw the ends of these meetings sometimes. We are toast. And Jessica Riley. The motion passes with 4 ayes and 1 abstention by Mr. Brem. So thank you ever so much. Thank you for those of you who have hung in with us, all 14 of you, from a height of what, 125, 128, and
131.
adjourned.
131.
131. There must have been a spike. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Andrew.
All right. Thank you.
Ciao.